And we are live on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. Drew, how are we doing today?
We're doing great, coming to you live from the Lucas Suck Studios.
You're just trying to stir that font. I'm not even
Well,
talking about basketball.
we don't have an NBA segment this week, right? So let me just, because apparently me talking about the watchability of players is me criticizing them talent-wise, which is not the case because Luka is very hella talented. I just don't pretend to enjoy to watch him play. That's all.
Yeah, well, you know how it is. You're not allowed to criticize anybody. If you do, you're being too negative. And, apparently that's not what, sports media is for anymore, is criticizing and breaking down and whatever. That's fine. That's their prerogative. But talking about breaking it down, we are going to be going through all 32 teams and giving out off-season grades. Drew, let's go ahead and do this division by division, starting in the AFC. Once we get done with this, we'll go ahead and move into what games we are looking forward to the most this upcoming NFL season. So starting with the AFC East, let's get it kicked off with the Buffalo Bills. I already kind of prefaced this with Drew telling him that I was a little harsh on some of these grades, and Buffalo was kind of one of the ones I was a little harsh on. I gave them a D. A couple of their key additions, Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman, Cole Bishop, Cedric Van Pran, and then key losses, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Mitch Morris, Leonard Floyd, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Tre'Davious White. I mean, it's a lot of big pieces that you're losing. Your wide receiver room got worse. Your center got worse. Your edge rusher group got worse. Your safeties got worse. And the people that you're replacing them with are young draft pieces. When I look at key additions for draft grades, I shouldn't see key additions being 90% draft picks. Yes, your draft picks, you want them to make an immediate impact, but to this degree, to try to fill in some big shoes like a Mitch Morris or Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde and a Stephon Diggs, you're gonna have some big issues. So you're gonna D from me for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, it's hard to be tough on the Buffalo Bills when you figure that some of their previous year's decisions kind of just came home to roost here, and they had to move off some older veterans on their roster. But you really have to look at where certain teams rank in the scheme of what they're trying to achieve over the course of a season. And a team like the Carolina Panthers that aren't ready to compete yet, and what they may get for an offseason grade compared to the Buffalo Bills, who are expecting to compete, who are trying to go up against an emerging Houston Texans team, who's trying to go up against the powerhouse and the Chiefs, and they do nothing but slide backwards. It's a D for me. They're big. Their biggest offseason addition is their first round pick, I guess, and Keon Coleman, who wasn't even that highly ranked on my wide receiver board, which doesn't mean that it won't be great. That just means that if you take a wide receiver and he's not highly ranked on my board, then I'm going to penalize you with my grade for your offseason. So you have a superstar quarterback. He's ready to win now. And this is the type of offseason that makes me wonder, at what point does Josh Allen look up and say, hey, what the fuck am I doing here? And can I get out of here? Because you're not supporting me in the way I need to be supported to try to win a championship. So it's a D for me also, one of my lowest grades out of all this.
Yeah,
I got to do some quick scrambling here because my good friend Jacob here didn't tell me we were going division by division, and I went alphabetical order. So I apologize for that. Bad producing to not give me a heads up there.
My bad.
So yeah, that's where we're at. Pretty bleak offseason for the Bills. Now I can't sit here and say there's a million things they could have done, but you don't get better, and everyone else around you did, and that's going to be a common theme for my draft grades this offseason, especially for two teams that are featured a lot on this podcast. They didn't get better while everyone else did, so it's a D for me for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to the next team, it's going to be the Miami Dolphins, who I'm going to go ahead and throw a B at. You lost Robert Hunt, who's huge for you, Connor Williams, who was in and out of the lineup because of injuries, Christian Wilkins, obviously huge, and Deshaun Elliott, another big loss for them. But you did try to replace them the best you can. Yes, you lost Connor Williams, but you replaced him with Aaron Brewer, who the best availability, or excuse me, the best ability is availability. And Aaron Brewer does have that under his belt, while Connor Williams does not. Yes, he's not to the same caliber of player. You also lose Xavier Howard, but you also bring in a much better corner who played really well last year in Kendall Fuller. You also bring in Jordan Poirier, Chop Robinson, Jalen Wright, who I think is going to make an immediate impact. Also bringing up Odell Beckham Jr., giving you a good wide receiver 3-4, and Jonnu Smith, which I know they're constantly looking for tight ends. I know Smythe is a decent tight end out there, but having a tight end rotation for the Miami Dolphins is not going to be a bad thing. So they're going to go ahead and while someone's ringing the doorbell.
This is like 3 weeks in a row we've got a doorbell ring in the podcast. I'm glad it was you this time and not me.
I know. My dog's losing their mind. Go lay down. Your wide receiver room, I think, got better. Tight ends got better. Your offensive guard isn't as good. The center's a wash for me because of the Connor Williams injury history. Edge rushers got a little bit worse. Defensive tackles got a little bit better. Cornerback room got a little bit better as well. So they lost a lot, but they tried their best to bring as much as they could with. Same with the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills had no cap space. Neither of them did the Miami Dolphins, but they still brought guys in. They were able to bring guys in that are going to make an immediate impact. So they get a B from me.
Yeah, it's a B for me as well. I agree. Losing Wilkins sucks, obviously, but you find that replacement in the draft. And I'm not going to go crazy on the Odell Beckham Jr. hype train that we do every year, but to get him this late in free agency, when realistically this was a position that was filled by like Cedric Wilson and Trent Sheffield in the past. I can't even say his name. He was a 49er. Yeah, Chase Claypool, and you add Odell Beckham Jr., who, if you set aside his personality and his antics throughout his career, and you just look at his production last year, he had a really good year. So it's a solid addition for them. Again, this is the type of grade that you get based off of the cap space that you have, and comparing them to the Buffalo Bills, who had limited opportunity. Miami got better. I think Miami got better here. And, they're deep AFC this year, and they're going to try to compete. So another weapon for Tua is not a bad thing. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think a lot of people, especially me I think both of us looking at the Miami Dolphins when the free agency grades first came out, it wasn't the highest quality of players, but they really kind of bid their time a little bit. They waited a little bit later. They got kind of the second wave of guys coming in, and I think they got a good haul for the prices as well. The New York Jets is up next. This is going to be another B for me. A couple of their key additions: Mike Williams, Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, Hassan Reddick, Olu Fashanu, and Malachi Corley, those last two being rookies who, again, I think are going to make an immediate impact. Key losses is going to be Jordan Whitehead, the safety, and John Franklin Myers, who they traded away, which I'm not sure if it's really a key loss when overall they got Hassan Reddick and you have a really deep rotation of pass rushers, Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson. Wide receiver room, in my eyes, got better. Offensive tackles got better. Centers got better. Defensive ends, edge rushers got better. Safety is the only one that got a little bit worse. But honestly, when you're looking at the Jets, B right now, but this grade could very easily drop down to like a D plus C minus because of the age and the injury history of those first three guys, and Mike Williams, Tyron Smith, and Morgan Moses. So it's the all-in approach that the Jets are going to take because there's a lot of jobs on the line. So you're hoping for health and prosperity for the Jets. If you are a Jets fan, if it doesn't work out, this grade is significantly lower.
Yeah, it's a B minus for me just because I like the additions they made in the offseason. But with their first round pick in the draft, kind of double upping a position that you already are solid at on paper. And if your justification for the pick is that, well, these guys have injury concerns, then why did you sign them in the offseason? So it's like you spend the money on them in the free agency, you spend the capital on them in the draft. If you stay healthy, you should be looking at the playoffs. But just a small bit of criticism on double upping at a position. If you thought you were going to go offensive tackle here, then why sign the guy? because obviously you don't have injury concerns on your first round pick. Now, of
Yeah.
course, all this could be blown out of proportion when you're 3 plays into your season and your star quarterback rips his Achilles off the bone. So it's
Yep.
just one of those things where I think everyone expects the Jets to compete for a playoff position this year, and it definitely wasn't an A offseason for me, but they did what
Yeah.
they needed to do to get back into contention. So we'll see.
Yeah. And then the last one is New England Patriots. Do you want to take this one since it was the last one up? Or do you want to scramble first?
Let me pull it up on my phone as I scroll through my notes app.
It's okay. That's where I did the games I was most excited for. So
What's funny is I do a notes app for every podcast,
yeah.
but at the very top I put like random thoughts that I want to attach, and like going back to like pre-draft stuff, looking at it, some of the thoughts that I had, I'm just like, oh, that actually that worked out really well for me. So I feel like I'm on a pretty good roll right now. So that means tough times are definitely ahead. What's funny is I was looking at offseason grades for everybody, and somebody gave the Patriots an F for moving on from Bill Belichick, and I'm like, I wanted to reach out to that guy and be like, he's not hired, right? He doesn't have a job. Like, I get
Right.
that we fired the winningest coach in the history of everything, but nobody else picked him up. Like, it
Yeah.
might have been a good decision to, move off of him. I give it a B minus. I think
Okay.
that they nailed they filled in the spot that they needed to fill, the quarterback. They moved off of Mac Jones. Credit to them for just making the decision. The wide receiver room is kind of one of those situations where you wonder what kind of production you're going to get out of it with the names you have. But I'm a massive fan of what they're doing on their defense. So
Yeah.
this was actually a pretty hard grade for me because I'm not 100% sure what my expectations are for the team moving into the season, but I like what they did in the offseason. So I don't rate it an A because I don't expect them to leap into playoff contention here, but I didn't really hate anything that they did. So one of those tough grades for me here.
Yeah, so this is kind of falling with where I mentioned with the Buffalo Bills when you have a lot of your key additions being draft picks and you have them trying to fill shoes immediately, your grade isn't going to be very high. Now, the difference between New England and Buffalo is New England didn't really have a bunch of key losses. Their number one key loss is going to be Trent Brown, but their key additions are mainly all draft picks. Drake May, Jalen Poe, Caden Wallace, Javon Baker. So tackle, 2 wide receivers, and a quarterback. So your quarterback room got better, and you get Jacoby Brissett in there as well. Your wide receiver room gets a little bit better with rookies because let's face it, your wide receiver room wasn't that great last year. So anything's an improvement. It's almost the same thing with the Arizona Cardinals way later on. Offensive tackle is really the only group I thought that lost something with Trent Brown, and you're having a rookie try to come in and fill it immediately. So I give them a C. A lot of the stuff wasn't too like big, and I'm not expecting the biggest thing. Obviously, this is going to be like a very slow rebuild with Drake May and his development and a couple of these young guys and trying to develop them as much as possible. Yeah, their defense is going to be very good. So really not a whole lot of changes you have to do there. But I would have liked to see a little bit more additions around Drake May, around whoever your quarterback was going to be in free agency. And I know you tried to go after Calvin Ridley, and the Titans offered a lot of money for him, and you weren't going to go ahead and chase after that. But I like that you tried. You just didn't quite land there. So I gave him a C just because there wasn't a whole lot of movement there. Again, a lot of the ads are draft picks, and if it's just draft picks, I want something a little bit more than that.
Leave it to the Celtics fan for giving a team credit for trying to make a move, but not actually making the move.
Hey man, we're past that shit. Fuck
Yeah,
off. Hey,
he's
we're
gone,
past it.
ain't
We're
he?
past it. We're
He
past it.
gone. That dude is gone.
So now we're going to go ahead and move on to the next division, which is going to be the AFC North, starting off with the Cincinnati Bengals, then moving to the Cleveland Browns, Baltimore Ravens, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers. With the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm going to go ahead and start it off with a C, same grade as the last one. You lose Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, Jonah Williams, Chidobe Awuzie. It's a lot of big losses there. You bring in Mike Gesicki, who's an okay tight end, and you also are probably going to get big contributions from Eric All this season as well from a rookie. Trent Brown is a great addition at tackle. Also, you have your first round pick, Amarius Mims, going to be potentially playing tackle, maybe going to develop. Not sure where he's going to really fit in at this moment. Geno Stone is a big acquisition at the safety position, but your running back room got worse. Your wide receiver room got worse. Your tight end room got a little better. Your tackle room got a little bit better. Your offensive guard room got a little bit worse. It's just kind of up and down. Corners worse, safeties better. So you're kind of just kind of stuck in the middle. It's not that you didn't do anything, and a lot of your contribution is going to be coming from draft picks. It's just you lost a lot and you kind of gained a lot. So you're kind of just kind of stuck there in the middle. I liked a lot of the moves that they did, but you kind of lost some and gained some. So you're just in the middle for me. C plus is where I'd put the Cincinnati Bengals for this offseason.
Yeah, I'm gonna give them a B minus. Geno Stone, Trent Brown, Amarius Mims. The losing DJ Reader sucks. The thing that I'm
definitely
confused on, the reason why I'm not, and this draft, this offseason grade could change in the coming weeks. It could get a lot better. It could get a lot worse. But what are we doing with T. Higgins?
T. Higgins.
That's my question here.
Absolutely.
Are we forcing him to play? Is he gonna play? Is he showing up to OTAs? Is he going through training camp? Is he gonna play? We've seen what happens when we trot players out on the field that don't really care. Now, I'm of the mindset that if he lines up week 1, he's going to play because that's a talented team and they have a talented quarterback and that they have a chance to do some things and make some noise. But I don't like going into the season with no clear cut path on what the T. Higgins plan is. And so for me, it's a B minus.
Okay. And I think that's fair. And the conversation with T. Higgins was kind of the reason why I kind of stuck with that C grade as well is because there wasn't a clear cut decision on what we're doing with him.
You do get credit for not losing him for nothing, though.
Sure,
I will throw
absolutely.
that out there. Like panicking and trading away from a 4th round pick would not have been the answer here. So
right.
There is slight credit for that, but still, you got to figure out when a player like Brandon Ayuk is silently politicking for a new contract, or when a CeeDee Lamb is like, hey, if I don't get paid, I'm not showing up to training camp, but he's directing that to the GM. Those are things that you can come back from. When a player is openly saying, trade me, I want out of here because you won't pay me, it's a little bit of a weirdness when the group all gets back together for the next season. So I think there needs to be either a small extension here, or why does he want to play? What if he gets hurt? What's in it for him here? So they need to answer that question for me.
For sure. Cleveland Browns, you want to pull this one up, or do you want me to start it off with?
I actually gave the Cleveland Browns were they didn't really do much. Obviously they didn't have a ton of draft picks, so you can't really, I don't know if you can criticize them for not having a good draft or if you can applaud them for not having a good draft. And then they didn't really do much in free agency. But you get an impact wide receiver for a 5th round pick. So that's good. Although I'm not a huge Jerry Jeudy fan. It's better than whatever they would have taken in the 5th at the wide receiver position. So, I mean, if there's anything that seems like a solid, like vanilla pudding, tapioca pudding offseason, it seems like this. So I'm just going to stick it right in at a C.
Okay. I actually kind of went high on this one, and I gave them a B plus, and that's because there wasn't any key losses for them. I didn't really see anything where they lost it, and where I was like, oh my gosh, like they're really gonna miss that at that position. They brought back a lot of the people that they were supposed to bring back, like a Zadarius Smith, and then also getting guys like Jerry Jeudy, Shelby Harris, Jordan Hicks, Michael Hall, getting a couple of these impact guys who are coming in and making the immediate impact on a team that is going to need it to make that next push, depending on how their quarterback plays. A big part of it, again, you didn't lose anything that makes me look at you and go, hey, like there's something that you're missing here that you didn't fill in, or whatever you did fill in, it wasn't good enough. Anthony Walker, Sion Takitaki, okay, cool. But you replace it with Jordan Hicks. I'm okay with that. I'm more than okay with that. So B plus is where I'm going with the Cleveland Browns. And the Baltimore Ravens, I think, is an off-season favorite for a lot of people, and I think that my grade might be just a tad lower than some people's. I give him a B minus. You lose Morgan Moses, Kevin Zeitler, so you lose additions, or excuse me, big pieces on the offensive line, along with Patrick Queen and Geno Stone, your interceptions leader, and a big part of your defense from last year. But you also gain Derrick Henry, Kyle Van Noy, Nate Wiggins, Tez Walker, TJ Tampa, a couple rookies that are going to make an impact immediately. Running back room gets better. Offensive tackle, offensive guards, your offensive line gets a little bit worse. But edge rushers get better, linebackers get worse, and your corners do get a little bit better. Again, especially with the addition of Nate Wiggins. So I gave him a B minus just because a couple of the losses are big time, even though it's only 4 guys. Those are 4 big pieces to this team. Running the ball with those first 2 is huge, especially going to that right-hand side. And then on the defensive side, big 2 contributors, losing them in the offseason, it might hurt a little bit in this upcoming season. So B minus.
I give him a B plus. I mean, they bring back their star defensive lineman. You get Nate Wiggins. You still TJ Tampa like
Yeah.
later than a lot of people thought that they were gonna be able to get him. And so I think they added talent all over the place. And I'm not. Everybody knew that Patrick Queen was not re-signing there because you cannot re-sign 2 linebackers, and so
Right.
I'm not gonna give them a lower grade for not bringing the player back. Matter of fact, if they had handed him money and hamstrung their ability to extend players in the future, I might have given them a lower grade for that. And back at the trade deadline, it's not like you're going to move him for something because you know that you're pushing for a Super Bowl this season. So I was
Right.
okay with the way they handled the Patrick Queen thing. Obviously, ultimately, he's probably going to turn into a 3rd or 4th round comp pick for them. So
Yeah.
it was a smart way to negotiate all that. And frankly, the Ravens just know how to draft. So
Yeah. No, absolutely.
whatever comes out of their draft class is bound to be successful. So I thought it was a really good offseason for them.
Yeah. No, yeah, and on with this next team as well, same thing with the drafting is a huge part of it. The Pittsburgh Steelers, you want to go ahead and start them off?
No, you go
No, really?
first.
This is my highest grade.
Is it really? I hated
It
everything
is.
they did. That's so funny. Go
Um,
ahead.
I gave him an A plus. So I know that, you know, at the end of the day, whether what you want to say about Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, they're both better than the previous quarterback room that was there. No matter what, they are better. Like sizably better. Even though they're not great players, they are still sizably better than the last group that was in there. Troy Fautanu is going to make an immediate impact, a first-round pick. Nate Herbig playing center, Patrick Queen, Dante Jackson, who they ended up losing Deontay Johnson, which is their only key loss. Deshaun Elliott, Zach Frazier, Roman Wilson, Peyton Wilson, a lot of draft picks, yes, but a lot of guys I had high up on my board who I thought were going to make impacts on their own respective teams, like a Frazier, like a Fautanu, like a Wilson, both Wilsons, but they all went to the same team and they are all going to probably make pretty close to an immediate impact. And again, your only key loss is Deontay Johnson. I gave him an A plus because of all the acquisitions. I think probably the best draft in this class. And again, I think overall you're a better team. Go ahead.
I guess they gave themselves the ability to be better next year.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone was clowning the Steelers defense last year, so adding Patrick Queen is cool. I don't think it moves the needle for them that much. I'm a little. I got a question mark on the Patrick Queen thing. He was surrounded by an amazing defense in Baltimore, so he played well, but now he's stepping into that main position at linebacker, and he's got to prove that he's worth it. I'm not saying he
Yeah.
won't, but he has to do it. Roman Wilson is a nice wide receiver. George Pickens is still a massive question mark. I know he's had a couple highlight reel plays,
Yeah.
but
I agree.
it's a questionable wide receiver room, and it's a questionable quarterback room. Like
Yeah.
you're giving them a good grade because they got rid of Kenny Pickett and added somebody else. But is Russell Wilson better than Kenny Pickett at this point in his career? Can we say that for certain that Russell Wilson, what he's put on tape the past few years? Now, Kenny Pickett's been terrible. Don't get me wrong, but
So
that
I
you're
was going to
going
tell
into
you
the
yes.
offseason, you're going into an offense that was the offense that Kenny Pickett was terrible in. So we're just
Yeah.
expecting Russell Wilson. That's the tide that raises all boats at this point. I don't really see it. I do give the Steelers credit for making the moves, though. So they knew Kenny Pickett wasn't the answer. They went out and traded for two different guys that could be. My personal opinions on those players aside, I mean, don't get me wrong. I watched Russell Wilson terrorize us for years. He's not
Yeah.
he's not the same guy though. So I don't know. I give him credit for making the moves. I give him a solid B minus because they went on got two different options for themselves. They had a really really good draft. Patrick Queen's a phenomenal player. I'll give him a B minus.
Okay. So moving on to the AFC South now. Gonna go ahead and start it off with the Colts and then the
I can't believe you
Jags.
gave him an A plus.
I did, absolutely.
Man, you must be a big time Justin Fields fan. I didn't know about that.
Fuck you. Colts, Jags, Texans, and Titans in that order. Starting off with the Colts, I gave them a B, just a solid B. With your key additions being A.D. Mitchell, Sam Ibukam, and Leatu Latu. So two highly touted draft picks and then an edge rusher to fill out your team. And then your key losses, you really have any. So I gave you a B over some of the guys who get a C in some of our other past. So who was it exactly? It was our Patriots. So Patriots filled in a lot of their holes with draft capital, and the key losses was really small. The thing is with the Colts, you didn't have any losses and you brought back a ton of guys. You re-signed your Kenny Moore and your Grover Stewart, and you brought those guys back in. You know, your Michael Pittman, you brought him back in, and you added to a couple of the rooms that needed to be added to. Like your edge rusher room is now really, really, really good, and your wide receiver room looks a lot better. I like Alec Pierce as a wide receiver, but A.D. Mitchell is going to eventually take over that deep threat role. So the Colts, I think, did a little bit better than that C, even a C plus. So I gave him a solid B.
Yeah, I gave him an A minus
Okay.
because I really, really like the Michael Pittman, A.D. Mitchell stack. I love the idea of that. I like the fact that they made the right call and took Latu as the first, big time defensive guy off of the board there. And to then go get A.D. Mitchell, who we talked about, we saw him mocked as high as a few picks later than that. We saw him mocked. This is what I really like about their draft is we saw A.D. Mitchell mocked to them at that pick that they took Latu at. They get Latu and then they get A.D. Mitchell anyway. They did a lot of things to help. I'm actually going to change my mind. I'm going to knock him down to a B plus because what if Anthony Richardson gets hurt again? What's the plan there? Now,
yeah,
Gardner Minshew outperformed his contract last year, so he was always going to get a little bit more money. Yeah. But we haven't seen anything on paper that shows us Anthony Richardson's going to stay healthy. He didn't just suffer one injury, if you guys remember. He kept getting hurt over and over and over. Was missing, coming out of the games, and so yeah, their team got better. Their quarterback room just still has a little bit of a question mark on it. So I'm gonna go B plus on this one.
Yeah, definitely. You want to go ahead and take the reins on the Jacksonville Jaguars?
You know what's funny about the Jacksonville Jaguars is that I'm interested to see what they're gonna do with their quarterback situation. I saw that they were talking 5 years, $212 million, and I'm just like, my problem is, and I may be living in 49er la la land. I'm perfectly understandable to this idea. But if we put Brock Purdy and if we put Trevor Lawrence up to all 32 teams in the NFL, how many of them are taking Trevor Lawrence over Brock Purdy based off of what they're going to do this season?
Yeah, right.
And I just wonder, 5 years, $212 million. That's just, but you know what? They haven't signed up that extension yet, so that doesn't factor into my grade. They still only get a C for me. How do we feel about Gabe Davis? Right, he's a player who was on the other side of a great player. So is he going to be able to stand alone? Is he gonna be better than Calvin Ridley was? You sign Eric Armstead to a big time contract, a guy that hasn't been able to stay healthy, and he doesn't rack up a lot of sacks. And honestly, you lose Darius Williams. So it's just one of those things where, to me, C plus, that's where they live.
Yeah.
Like, this team didn't get better to me. There's a lot of weirdness in the NFL this offseason when you go back and look at, like, a lot of teams just kind of like stayed where they were at. They didn't really make
Yes.
any impact moves. There weren't a lot of teams that got a lot better. And I think that has a lot to do with, like, when you look at the upper echelon of the NFL right now, those teams are not like, you know, who's the best team that's like running out of time? There's not a ton of them. Chiefs are there to stay. The Texans are on the rise. The Cowboys and the 49ers both have younger quarterbacks and younger cores that are like, Micah and Nick aren't going anywhere.
Right.
It's just like, maybe a lot of these teams are just looking and thinking like, okay, it's the top of the NFL that isn't going anywhere, so we're not going to make all these moves. But then look at the Texans. They put all their chips onto the, whatever that analogy is. They push their chips in, they went all in, and look at them. Like, is anyone going to be surprised if they're playing the Chiefs in the conference finals next year? Like, will that surprise
Right.
anyone? I don't think so.
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah, and what's weird too is, so I give him a B minus, and so I'm like kind of right
You're
there
so
with you.
nice.
You lose Calvin Ridley, and then you're attempting to replace him with a combination of Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr., and you lose Darius Williams, and then you're attempting to replace him with a combination of a Darnell Savage, Ronald Darby combination. But you also add to the offensive line that needed a little bit more help outside of the tackles, which there's question marks about who you're going to sign, who's going to stay. Ezra Cleveland and Mitch Morris got brought in for the offensive line, and then Eric Armstead does make a defensive line better and can help out a guy like Trayvon Walker, who ended up having a pretty decent last season, and hopefully help him out a little bit more to progress to the player that he is supposed to be, that number one overall pick a couple of years ago. So again, they lost two big pieces, and they lose two guys, and they're taking like four guys to replace the two. So I kind of called some of it a wash. Like, I don't mind. I'm not the biggest Calvin Ridley fan. I don't think he's going to be super duper successful going forward. But Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. replacing him, I think, is okay. Darius Williams is the one where I have a little bit more issue with, because he's very talented, and Darnell Savage and Ronald Darby are not going to be able to give the same production that Darius did. So a B minus is where I put him. Again, with the offensive line additions that you made, Eric Armstead addition as well, mentoring a Trayvon Walker, B minus is where I want to sit for him. The Houston Texans, ton of moves. I gave them an A minus. Key additions: Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs, Daniil Hunter, Danico Autry, Aziz Al-Shaair, Tim Settle, Kamari Lassiter, Blake Fisher, and Cade Stover, a couple of rookies, again, who I think are going to make an immediate impact. And then key losses: Scott Quessenberry, Jonathan Grenard, which again you replace with then Daniil Hunter, and then Malik Collins as well. So only a couple of losses, really, and you kind of load up on a lot of talent on that team. I just wasn't, I'm not sure. I was a lot bigger fan of the Stephon Diggs thing when you had him for a little bit longer time, instead of like kind of just shoehorning like all of the money into like the year, so then you could potentially cut him after that. I'm not 100% on where we're kind of sitting with that one. So an A minus is where I want to sit with them. A lot of really good additions. We're going to make an immediate impact to this team that, like you said, might end up making a AFC conference championship game.
Yeah, I love the Daniil Hunter. Obviously, I love Aziz Al-Shaair. No surprise there.
Right.
And honestly, everybody wanted to give the Cincinnati Bengals a freaking award for signing Zach Moss. I love trading for Joe Mixon. I love Joe Mixon. That dude is nothing but production. And, the Cincinnati Bengals fans will be like, our offensive line sucks. Protect Joe Burrow. We have the worst offensive line in the history of the NFL. Then be like, oh, Joe Mixon only gets 2 yards a carry. Well, duh, those things go hand in hand. Like, how does that make sense? You're gonna criticize your offensive line and then run Joe Mixon out of town. I mean, honestly, the Houston Texans, I'm shocked that this is an A minus, considering you freaking love what the Steelers did. But whatever, I'm not here to debate two of your draft grades. But I gave it a minus as well. They took my boy with their first pick, Lassiter, and I really like that. And they picked up a tight end later in the draft, which they need.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where I think that they added important, massive, like impact pieces, like Daniil Hunter, impact piece, Stephon Diggs, impact piece.
Yep.
And I actually disagree with you. I like the fact that they're not attached to Stephon Diggs longer than they need to be. I think you give that rookie, they're not all rookies, obviously. You give that young group of wide receivers room to grow. And the one thing that I think the Houston Texans are showing here is like they're not afraid to make a swing. So if they
Yeah.
got to now this is a lot of this team comes from the 49ers and Rams, who've pretty much made the mid-season trade famous the past couple of years. And I just like the Texans have shown that they're going to go for it if they think that there's a chance to get better. I think Houston Texans, out of like all the teams in the NFL right now, it's got to be an exciting, very, very like exciting start to the season for the Houston Texans. Like you
Yeah,
have to be
definitely.
so stoked for your team.
Yep.
And I think they might start seeing some market share, some market growth in the Texas area in terms of the more popular team to root for down there, because it's just they right they're growing, they're getting better, and they don't have a babbling idiot for an owner.
Yeah, I
Are
think
you excited about the 10-part Netflix documentary on Jerry
I
Jones's life?
yeah, I saw that. It's gonna be
I don't know
interesting.
how you're going to do 10 parts on his life. Maybe they're hoping he's going to die before it's over so
I
they
don't
could finish it all out.
know. It's funny the stark contrast of all the stuff, CJ Stroud and Micah Parsons really just hanging out the entire offseason. It feels like every single day. And the contrast of Cowboys fans in the comment sections of those videos and the Texans fans like thinking it's funny and fun, and then the Cowboys fans being like, he needs to get back to work, like we need to do all this work, and and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, dude, like nobody can have any fucking fun around here. That's why everyone hates us. It's Jesus Christ. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. Moving on to the Tennessee Titans. Do you want to take this one, or do you want me to take this?
No, I'll take this one. This is a B plus for me. I did
Okay.
knock the Tennessee Titans down a little bit for Mike Vrabel. I think he's a hell of a coach. I did not agree with what they did there, but I think that maybe their hand might have been a little bit tipped based off of the fact that Vrabel may not have liked the way that the front office structure was going, and I think he kind of like pushed his way out. Their draft was interesting. I know there's a lot of players on their draft that you and I were high on, namely Tavondre Sweat, but JC Latham at 7 is freaking wild. But then
Yeah,
you go ahead and and I think you and I could both agree the Calvin Ridley thing is that there's a big ass question mark on the back of Calvin Ridley. But I love
definitely.
L'Jarius Sneed, obviously Tony Pollard. Interesting running back to fill in for Derrick Henry. Losing Aziz Al-Shire sucks, but I mean, how important are middle linebackers in the NFL today anyway? So it's a B plus for me. If they had kept their head coach, I might have been a little bit higher on this. This is mostly the L'Jarius Sneed thing. Is just you and I were talking about how I thought he was going for a first round pick, and he obviously
Yeah.
didn't. But you trade for him, you sign him, and frankly, that dude's a hell of a corner. I don't care what anyone says. Like I watched that dude.
Yep.
The 49ers are talking about let's get rid of Deebo Samuel because that he can't get open against man-on-man coverage because he's the reason we lost the Super Bowl and all this shit. And he shut Deebo down in the
Yeah.
Super Bowl. So I really like what Tennessee Titans did. Unfortunately, their outlook on the season, you still got a massive unknown at quarterback. So we'll
Yeah.
see what their ultimate season looks like. But you weren't going to make a change at quarterback this early anyway. So it's
No
a
way.
B plus for me.
Yeah, I give it a B, and I think what I like the most is they're surrounding Will Levis, which is with as much as possible.
Sure.
Losing Derrick Henry, gaining Tony Pollard, that's still a step down in my opinion. Tony did not do well when he was the full-time starter. You can go look at the numbers and go look how he did. You could just go look at the film. His vision was strange and muddled in a lot of situations, and I wasn't sure what he was kind of doing. Calvin Ridley, great addition, but overpaid. I like Tyler Boyd being added as well. J.C. Latham taken a little bit too high. Like the player, but just too high taken. Lloyd Cushenberry is a great addition at center while losing Aaron Brewer. So you replace him with a better player. Chidobe Awuzie and L'Jarius Sneed, your entire
Cheeto.
secondary gets an immediate boost. You have one of the better secondaries in the league already with that huge boost. So a little bit worse at running back, better at wide receiver. I think your offensive tackle is a little bit worse because you lose Andre Dillard. But center, better. Linebacker, a little bit worse because of Aziz losing him. But then corner room just immediately boost up. So I give it a B. But again, I like that they're trying to give Will Levis as much chances as possible, boosting up the offense with the line and the weapons around him. So, and I'm a believer of Will Levis. I hope he does well next year because I don't have any hard feelings against the Titans because I don't really see him as a threat, and I don't think a lot of people do. So if they can go out swinging, I think it could be exciting.
Yeah, it's so funny how you look at certain teams. Like, I hope the Houston Texans kill it because
Right.
we don't got to worry about them at all. Like,
Right.
destroy it. Like, if y'all make it to the Super Bowl, we're in the same Super Bowl, I'll start hating that week. But besides
Right.
that, like, I hope the Texans kill it.
Yeah, no, I mean, and my favorite team from Texas, and I'm like, hey, Houston, like tear it up, dude. That's crazy. Good for him, you know. So yeah, I'm in the same boat. Moving on to the last division in the AFC, and is going to be the AFC West. Starting off with the Denver Broncos, I'm giving them a C. You lose Jerry Jeudy, Lloyd Cushenberry, Josie Jewell. Why am I like blanking on like how to pronounce the name? Justin Simmons as well, which you cut. You do gain John Franklin Myers, Brandon Jones, and a safety, Bo Nix, and Troy Franklin as well, who I think are going to, once again, make an immediate impact on this team. So a little bit better at quarterback because Russell Wilson clearly wasn't going to work out over there. Worse at wide receiver, worse at center, a little bit better on the edge with the addition of John Franklin Myers. And that's not because he's so good. That's just because your edge room is just that poor. Linebackers get a little bit worse, and your safety room does get a little bit worse, even with the addition of Brandon Jones, who I think is going to be a pretty good player. But the problem is you paid him a lot of money. So I gave him a C.
Yeah, I actually gave him a B minus. Getting off of
Okay.
Russell Wilson is worth an A plus just entirely for me. And then you bring in Bo Nix, you bring in Sean Payton's quarterback of the future. Jerry Jeudy never did shit for you. You move off of him. This seems like Denver, Broncos went out and they said, "Hey, we're going to go to a yoga class. We're gonna cleanse the palate. We're going to stretch some things out. We're going to get rid of all the bad juju and the bad spirits in this building, and we're just going to turn Russell Wilson's office that he has into a broom closet. And we're going to do all these things, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to try to catch on to the next wave of competition in the NFL." Obviously, they have a long ass road to the top with Chargers and Chiefs in their division. Even the Raiders got better this offseason, I guess. So there wasn't much they could do, but suffering under that Russell Wilson's contract for another couple of years didn't make any sense. So they ripped the Band-Aid off, they move forward. And the thing about it is Broncos, they gave them their fan base something to be excited about, right? Like they made a couple of moves. There's something you could root for. Bo Nix having a good start to his season, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a B minus for me, just simply moving off of that albatross of a contract and making the decision that they needed to make, because that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. You got to go to your owner and be like, yo, we got to get rid of this guy. You got to convince him. You got to have the balls to do it. And you did, because those kind of moves get people fired.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Next is your dad's favorite team, the LA Chargers, San Diego Chargers.
San Diego Chargers.
Yeah. You want to go ahead and take this one?
Yeah, LA was an interesting offseason. I mean, I give it an A just for them hiring John Harbaugh. I am taking that into consideration here. The Chargers have never spent more than $1 on anything. They had one of the worst medical staffs in the history of the NFL. Stabbed poor Tyrod Taylor in the lung, which caused Justin Herbert to start, and that's how they found out they had a superstar quarterback. Keenan Allen gone, Mike Williams gone, Austin Eckler gone, Eric Kendricks gone, and then you save yourself Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. I guess that's okay. I love Joe Alt. I love Lad McConkey, obviously. Junior Colson, John Harbaugh. I think that they did everything they could considering their cap space, but
Right.
you and I had a talk. We had talked a lot about in the offseason, just talked about what are the Chargers going to be able to do? What can they do? What can they do? They can't do anything. They're going to have to get rid of all these guys. They kept their two defensive starters, added Ladd, which is cool. Joe Alt is, next level at the tackle position. So it's really not an A. I was just joking. I'm going to go a B minus here just because
Okay.
they didn't give Justin Herbert anything to take the next step forward with, and they're wasting years of his career, which sucks. But there was only so much they can do, and frankly, what they did, I like better than what the Bills did. And the Bills and
Yeah.
the Chargers are kind of in the same position here. So
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. They're a step down from the Miami Dolphins, who I think is in the same vein, but they are definitely a much bigger, much bigger step up than the Buffalo Bills. But I was just a touch lower than you were, and I'm giving them a C plus. Yes, I love the additions that they made in Alt and McConkey, Junior Colson. They get their linebacker, obviously, and I think Cam Hart's going to make a big splash on this team. That their cornerback room is kind of weak outside of their number one. But yeah, the key losses is a lot on the offense, which hurts Justin Herbert, who's your star quarterback, who's supposed to be the face. And I know that we should trust Harbaugh as much as possible, but this isn't JJ fucking McCarthy. Okay, this is Justin fucking Herbert. This is what are we doing here? This is a guy that you build around. You don't take pieces away so you can run the fucking football. This isn't Michigan. So I'm having a hard time believing in it. Because again, you lose a couple of big pieces on that offense, and you do replace a little bit the best you can, I guess. But it's just a lot of it's draft picks, and again, I can't give you much more than a C plus for doing just your draft picks while also choosing to keep your ancient edge rusher over your older wide receiver. Yes, I understand he's older, but also he's Justin Herbert's guy. So again, not so confident about that one. So again, a C plus is where I want to go with that.
I think what it signified though is that the Los Angeles Chargers are finally going to spend some money. You got
Yeah,
to spend money to move off of those contracts. There's dead cap there that's going to cost you. Signing Harbaugh and his expensive staff, like the outlook for the Chargers is high in my opinion because it kind of signals the fact that Spanos is finally going to spend some money. So, um,
I could see that.
and honestly, what were you really expecting anyway? Harbaugh's going to come in. He's going to implement his attitude and his offense. He's not the type of coach to turn it around year one anyway.
Right.
When he took over with the 49ers, that was a stacked ass. Like, go back and look at it. Not just from me being the 49ers fan, but go look at that defense that they had. And, even the offensive talent they had with Frank Gore and Vernon Davis and things like that. So,
Yeah.
I think that going forward, the Chargers are in a much better position than they were when the season ended. So that's why I was a little higher on their offseason.
Yeah. And we're literally like one grade away, so it's not that much different. The Kansas City Chiefs, I handed them an A minus. Key
I gave them a fucking F because fuck the Chiefs.
Key loss is L'Jarius Sneed is going to be the biggest one, but you also add Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, Jaden Hicks, safety coming out of the draft. I think is going to make a big impact on the defense. You also re-sign Chris Jones. Travis Kelce gets a little bit of an extension as well. So there wasn't a whole lot of movement with the team outside of Rashee Rice going as fast as he can and punching people in clubs. But outside of him making the most noise in the offseason for the Kansas City Chiefs, I kind of just trust what the Chiefs do time after time. You surround Patrick Mahomes with more weapons. Yes, again, you do lose L'Jarius Sneed, which is going to hurt a little bit. But
They
I'm
got
going to
corner
trust them.
depth though. It's not like
Yeah.
it's now just Trent McDuffie and you. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
and they've done this before, right? This is
yeah.
something that the Chiefs has done. They've gotten rid of a number one corner for another guy just to step up because they're like, hey, we can and we trust this new guy to come in and do it. So it's more of a trust factor with Kansas City Chiefs, unlike the Chargers, where I trust what they are doing.
Tyreek
And
Hill, goodbye.
exactly
Yeah.
right. I trust what they're doing and the process they go through. They've won multiple Super Bowls. They're pretty much a dynasty at this point of the 2020. So A minus.
Honestly, I don't. The thing is like on its face, I'm not super impressed with Xavier Worthy, but when you put him on the Chiefs, it's like, God damn, they're only going to ask him to do one thing. Their quarterback's got a freaking cannon. He's probably
Yep.
going to go for 5 or 6 touchdowns this year. They're going to be like 60 or 70-yard tutties. So,
Yeah.
they bring back Travis Kelce on an extension, Chris Jones, et cetera, et cetera. They lost Willie Gay.
Yep.
I totally forgot about Hollywood Brown. That's a good ad for them. That wide receiver room is 16 times better than it was when they started last offseason, because last time I checked, they didn't sign anyone this offseason that has stone cinder blocks for hands like Kadarius Toney. So fuck the Chiefs. I'm not even giving them a grade.
You want to take the Las Vegas Raiders then? Your next favorite team?
I don't know what to do with the Raiders here,
Okay.
because I don't know what they're doing with the quarterback position. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? Like, are we starting Gardner Minshew at this point? Like, that's cool. We know what he is. You take Brock Bowers, who it's like if anyone else had picked him in that range, I'd have been like, Brock Bowers, yeah, woo, ha, let's go. Well,
Mhm.
first of all, the Raiders are probably going to misuse him because they're the frickin' Raiders. They hired this pom pom cheerleader guy as their head coach. It's just like sure, it could all work out, but it's like just totally freaking Raiders. Like we got a tight end. Let's add another one. The team wants this. The team, like, this isn't the NBA. We don't let the superstars decide who our head coaches are going to be. Okay. Like, I'm sitting here looking at JJ Redick's going to coach LeBron James and the Lakers. How does that make sense? That's what the Raiders did with Antonio Pierce. So I just the thing about it is, like, I really like Brock Bowers. Obviously Christian Wilkins is great. Gardner Minshew. But you lose Josh Jacobs, and what are we doing there, right? But then you get Jackson Powers Johnson in the second when everybody was talking about how he was a top 20 pick. So
Yep.
they did a lot of good things. They have a lot of confusing things. So I'm just going to go ahead and slap him in at a B.
Yeah, I give him a B minus, so I guess a little bit lower than yours. They added Michael Gallup, who's going to play probably just as well as Hunter Renfrow did, so it's not really a big addition or loss between the two of them. It's kind of a wash at that point. But Brock Bowers is going to make an immediate impact. Andrus Peat coming in for the tackle position is going to be big for them. Jackson Powers Johnson, Christian Wilkins is great, but you guys did pay him a massive contract, which is what he was going to command. But of course, the Raiders did it, so it's just it hits a little bit different. And then Gardner Minshew as well. You lost Josh Jacobs, so I'm not sure who's going to go ahead and play your running back position outside of what's his face from Georgia. I forget his name, but it's who's going to play the running back position. He's from Georgia. I'm pulling you right now. And then Jermaine Illuminor is also another key loss that they did. But again, they go ahead and try to replace it with Andrews Pete. So doing a little bit there. B minus. Running back room gets a little bit worse. Wide receivers, tight ends, tackles get a little bit better. And your defensive tackle gets a little bit better. Everything else is kind of just a wash for me. Like the quarterback, Gardner Minshew, doesn't really move the needles for me too much. I don't even know who's going to start, so I don't really know what's going to go on there. Gardner or Aiden O'Connell. So I'm not sure what's
It's
going
got to
on
be
there. B
Gardner,
minus.
right?
Probably you paid him the money to, so and you've kind of already seen what Aiden O'Connell can do, and you've seen what Gardner Minshew can do at this point. You're probably starting Gardner Minshew to try to make it second place in this division, which isn't going to be too terribly hard, I imagine, unless the Chargers come out swinging. That's the only thing I could really see, because the Broncos aren't going to be it. Now that finalizes the AFC portion. Moving on to the NFC. Going to move on to everybody's favorite division, the NFC East, and moving on to everybody's favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys, who...
How far into this do you think we'll get before you remember the name Zamir White?
Zamir White, yeah, okay. Yeah, see, it was Georgia. I did a U, dude. That's all I could remember. I was like, yeah, he's from Georgia. I don't remember the rest, and he was a backup at Georgia too. It wasn't even a starter.
Do you think
So
that's good for my memory, our memory, that we remember the college they play for, or bad for your memory that you can't remember?
I feel like we're replacing things in our memory. Like we're just replacing one thing for another. That's all we're doing. We probably knew like all the names before, but now we're getting more and more into college stuff and scouting all we remember is the colleges. So we're just taking out names and replacing with colleges. That's all we're doing. We're on max capacity right now. It's like when you're at a concert and you're filming something, you have to delete other videos to now film what you want to film. It's the same thing.
I had a screen up on my computer at work the other day, and one of the guys came walking in, and they were like, "Oh, what are you looking at?" I was like, "Oh, some draft stuff." And he was like, "Oh, cool, cool, cool." He's like, what kind of, what, how do you think my team did?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm looking at next year's draft." And they were like, "What do you mean next year's draft?" I was like, "Oh, I'm looking at a 2025 mock." And they're like, "For fucking what?" I'm like, well, I don't know. This is how I learn the players that I'm supposed to. You look at the mock drafts, and then I know who I'm supposed to watch. Because if there's some stud out there at South Dakota State, I want to make sure that I watch him. Because otherwise, I ain't gonna be watching no South Dakota State this year.
Right. The Dallas Cowboys. You want to start it off?
Nope.
I gave him a C minus.
Oh, you gave him higher than I did.
Yeah, I was trying to be at least a little bit nice, but it's hard. I mean, it was really low at first, and I kind of settled at a C minus because I'm always really hard on the Cowboys. So I'm like, maybe I'm being a little negative. Maybe I'll go ahead and bump it up just a little bit. So, additions of Eric Kendricks, Tyler Guyton, Cooper Beebe, and Maurice Luafau are probably going to make an immediate impact. Those latter three guys being rookies. Again, probably Zeke.
And you don't
yeah.
you don't like teams having their major additions be rookies.
I do not, especially when your key losses are Tony Pollard, which regardless of what I said about Tony Pollard, he is still better than what we have at the position
Tyron Smith,
now. Tyron Smith, Tyler Biotish, Leighton Vander Esch retires. Armstrong. Stephon Gilmore is gone for now. Maybe we can bring him back. Yeah, who knows?
Michael
He's
Gallup.
up in there. So a lot of guys who are, again, it's making the team worse, and we really didn't do a whole lot to go all in. Yeah, it's probably a D. I like that you're doing it both ways, just in case you're not sure which way's the right one. C minus is what I gave it. Again, initially I was a lot lower. I was closer to like a D minus F, honestly, when I first booted it up and I started. So
this is a big fat fucking D. Do you want to know why? Because the Eagles got way fucking better, and you guys didn't do shit. You did nothing. Like, I don't want to hear you hated Tyler Guyton, so don't sit here and sing his praises. Like you hated the pick. You know you hated the pick, and we talked all leading up to the draft that it was going to be Guyton, and you hated it the entire time. Yep. And you got the corpse of Ezekiel Elliott. You're going to hand the ball off to. Yep. Terrible. And you still haven't even signed your quarterback to an extension. You haven't given your wide receiver an extension. Literally, this is what I need someone to do. I need someone to drive out to the headquarters in Dallas and make sure Jerry Jones ain't dead yet. But I got to tell you, it makes sense you guys didn't make any offseason moves because he's too damn busy pitching his damn Netflix special. Like, of course you guys didn't do anything. He was trying to get his 10-part story sold to Netflix. This is a big fat fucking D. D for Dallas.
And I'm not going to disagree. Usually I'm far and above the harder one on the Cowboys. So I was trying to give it a little bit of leeway this time around. So apparently we switched roles.
How can you be excited about next year? I'm just saying.
Do I sound excited about next year, Drew? Because I'm fucking not. I'm so fucking tired. I'm really fucking tired. You want me to do this? Fine. You know how tiring it is to hear, oh, all in. We're gonna go all in, and it's not all in. All in for fucking what? You're not going all in except for another fucking helicopter that you want to fucking buy to go ahead and land at the Star to go watch the fucking players practice and then leave after 15 minutes because your old ass can't fucking breathe without a ventilator. Okay, who fucking cares, dude? This is fucking crazy. I'm over it. It's so tiring. It's like, man, and then I'm excited because we're gonna go watch the fucking Browns play, so I'm like, oh, cool. I'm really excited to go watch a fucking game. And then I'm just like, how excited am I to go watch a fucking, I'm excited. I'm really excited to go watch, but god fucking damn, dude, it's so tiring. And there's this creeping, looming suspicion that we're going to do Dak so fucking dirty next year, that we're going to just somehow, some way, we're going to go through and we're going to hand Trey Lance the fucking keys next year and go, here you go. Like, the team's all yours, buddy. And that's what we're going to fucking do. We're going to do Dak, one of the most standout fucking guys, like maybe one of the only Cowboys that has a person people actually like. And we're going to fucking do him dirty. That's my
But
fucking issue.
I don't think so, because y'all, you still have another quarterback on the rot. Oh, wait, never mind. Okay, you're right.
Dude, I'm fucking over it. It's tiring. All right, so now you got it out of me. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off next with the Philadelphia Eagles? Dickhead.
What happened?
No, go ahead. You go with the Eagles.
You know what's funny about Philadelphia is I think that they have my highest offseason grade, but
okay,
I also don't know like the moves they made aren't a guarantee that they're gonna. There's a lot of moves that like look good on paper, but
which happens every year with the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, let me just put it this way: DeAndre Swift, you replace him with Saquon Barkley. That's fantastic.
Yep. Running back
their draft was fantastic. Bryce Huff, fantastic. Devin White, fantastic. You lose Jason Kelsey, that's rough. You lose Fletcher Cox, that's rough. CJ Gardner-Johnson. So to me, it was an A. I think you upgrade the running back position, which I a lot of people I think did not understand the impact, and I think I brought this up to you. What was the running back? Was it Miles Sanders?
Yes.
That they ran that read option with that was fantastic, and DeAndre Swift couldn't run it. He wasn't really good with it, and I think that really hampered Jalen Hurts this past season. And Jalen Hurts, I don't think he is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL in terms of throwing the ball, and so I think you need to add in the other stuff, and you replace that with Saquon Barkley. To me, that's just fantastic. They drafted 2 stud corners. What was their weakest spot on defense? Their secondary. They bring in CJ Gardner-Johnson. They draft 2 stud corners. They bring in Bryce Huff. Like, it's great. It was a great offseason. That's part of the reason why your guys' draft grade, why your offseason grade is so bad, because the Cowboys were good last year. The Cowboys did not get worse. They didn't do anything to get worse. Well, losing Tony Pollard kind of sucks. But they didn't do much to get worse. And Van Der Esch retires. It is what it is. But you bring in Eric Kendricks. But the Eagles got better, bro. On paper. In theory, they got better.
Right.
Their corners sucked. They replaced them with 2 really good corners. Their safety sucked. They bring in a safety. Their running back wasn't great after week 5. They bring in a star running back on paper. Now, in classic Eagles fashion, half this shit could not work out. But on paper, this looks fantastic.
Yeah, the thing is so here's how I did things is I gave I went position by position for rooms, and I said, okay, what rooms got better? And the running back room got better, but the quarterback room obviously stays the same. Wide receiver room pretty much stays the same. Tight end room pretty much stays the same. Tackles stay the same. Guards pretty much still stay the same. The center gets worse, obviously, but that's just because Jason Kelsey is
you don't replace that.
That's inevitable. But you also trade Hassan Reddick. You get Bryce Huff. That's pretty close to a wash for me. There's not a big, huh?
I'll call that a wash.
And so your biggest position you get better at is corner. So you get really good at corner and really good at running back. I give it a B+. But that's because all the other positions either to me stay roughly the same, or they're a wash when you go in and replace some of the guys. So it's a B+.
I gotta tell you, your Eagles hating is showing here because you love what the fucking Steelers do, but you don't like what they do. Would you have been happier if the Eagles had traded away Jalen Hurts for fucking Russell Wilson?
No, but they also okay, we're not talking about Jalen Hurts being Kenny fucking Pickett. It's a big difference. It's a huge difference. The Steelers added a lot of impact guys who are going to make an impact right now today who also have a ton of potential. And they got better at multiple positions. While the Eagles got better, really a lot better at 2 positions. While everything else is either just a wash or they didn't move.
But they got
That's
a
the
lot
difference.
better at their worst positions. They took the worst parts of their team and made them substantially better.
But it's a running back position.
Oh, I'm talking about the corners.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, the corners, absolutely. But how much are those guys going to play? They're on my list for biggest additions. Absolutely.
They probably should fucking start.
They should. Absolutely. But how much are they really going to play? That's the issue.
Well, when James Bradbury stubs his toe.
Right. Oh, nice. I have work tomorrow. Beautiful.
And Saquon still went with almost went for 1,000 yards last year with 6 or 7 touchdowns. Like it's an addition,
yeah,
dynamic addition.
It is, but I'm not talking. I mean, it's a B plus. You're not talking about multiple positions where you're getting better. Like you got worse at the center position because he retired, who's a huge part of your magical tush push, and you also get a wash on defensive end, and then you got better at running back, which okay, and then corner, you do really well there. Everything else is just about the same. There's not much of a difference there. The guys at the top, they don't make a lot of changes, sure, but you're also going to be plus. And it's just like you said, a lot of the Eagles shit that they do, it's like, oh my gosh, how they got Shaq Leonard. That's crazy. He fucking sucked last year. He wasn't fucking good. They get a lot of namesake guys, and they just don't do a whole lot. They do this shit every single year. There's like 1 or 2 guys who might work out on their big name free agents, but also they sign contracts where they can get out of them very easily. Unfortunately, they just didn't do that with the corners this time around. So that's
this
also their fault for resigning.
I just want you to clip this when you post it on YouTube and just say Cowboys fan hates Eagles offseason.
I get, yes, I don't hate it. It's a B plus. What are we talking about? What are we talking about, bro? You know what?
You gave the Steelers an A plus.
Yeah.
That's a whole grade better than this.
Yes.
Because they traded for Russell fucking Wilson.
They got better.
Did they?
Yes. Don't act like Kenny Pickett's not one of the worst quarterbacks to ever start in the history of the NFL. You're talking about a guy who has like stats like we're from the 1960s. Like he could have gone and played during Jim fucking Crow and been just as good as a dynamic offense today. He's just not good. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are 100 times better, and I don't even like either one of those guys. Kenny Pickett is one of the worst quarterbacks to ever start in the NFL ever. Troy Fontana is going to make an immediate impact. Impact center. Impact linebacker, impact corner where they need it, impact safety where they need it, impact wide receiver where they need it, impact linebacker again where they need it. All these positions, they need it. They got better at so many positions: corner, linebacker, center, quarterback, offensive tackle. The Eagles did it at 2 positions, and one of them's debatably important.
Are still only going to win 6 games last year, and the Eagles put them in position to make it to the Super Bowl.
But they also already have the team surrounding it for that. They already have the team for it.
And they took their potential Super Bowl aspirations and improved the worst room on their roster substantially.
Yeah. If they're even going to play that much.
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, they don't have to improve in a whole lot of areas, but you didn't do a lot.
It's not your fault. You're in denial. It's okay.
You got a B plus for not doing a lot.
I'd be pissed if I was a Cowboys fan.
That's pretty good.
I'm pissed as a Niners fan.
You literally don't do that much. You don't do that much, and you get a B plus. The Eagles are the guys who barely do anything on a project, and they still get a B. Like, they didn't do that much. They did a few little contributions to make them feel like they did a whole lot at running back. And then corner, absolutely, but they're still going to be young corners in the league. Bryce Huff is a better player
than Hassan Reddick.
I don't think I believe that. Bryce Huff has what, 1 good year? I'm not going to throw all my...
Hassan Reddick is like getting up there, though. Like you don't think that Bryce Huff statistically has a better season than Hassan Reddick this year?
I think they're going to be really similar. I think they're going to be really close. I think they're going to be around the 8 to 10 sack range. I think that's where they're going to sit. If you're ready to move on from the worst team in the league.
You know what? That's fine. We can move on. Hell, I keep forgetting that you're the guy that likes when people pay $100 million to guards, so I should just relax for a second.
Yeah, well, what about the Commanders? What do you give the Commanders?
I give the Commanders an A+, because they took the right quarterback.
Fuck you. Do you really give him an A+?
No, but I really like Adam Peters, and I think that the Commanders are on a upswing, which is another reason why I hate what the um, Cowboys did. But you got a new ownership, new front office, new coaching staff. They've done everything perfect. They add the right wide receiver. They add this Biotish guy that I've heard is pretty good. Um, besides that, they really didn't do anything, but their future is looking bright. The Commanders could win the division in 2 years when Trey Lance is the starting quarterback for the Cowboys. Jaden Daniels could be in the MVP conversation in 3 years, and Trey Lance would be the starting quarterback for the Cowboys.
So what do you want to give them?
I give him an A.
I gave him an A-. Okay. Jaden Daniels, and it's a wash between your running backs. Between you lose Antonio Gibson and you get Austin Eckler. There's really no difference between the two guys at this point in their careers. Tyler Biotish is an improvement. Dorrance Armstrong is an improvement to a room that lost a couple of their edge rushers in the middle of the season last year to trades. Johnny Newton, getting him in the second round is probably a steal, and then boosting up your linebacker room with Frankie Louvu.
Frankie Louvu's a beast.
Yep. And then Bobby Wagner's there for any type of development, especially to potentially Jamin Davis, who's had kind of a rough career to start it out. And then they also bring in Mike Sanders still as slot corner. So I like
Cleveland Farrell is a better football player than the turd bucket that they traded to us at the deadline last year. So we lost the Super Bowl because of the fact that our offensive line didn't hold up, but we looked like shit leading up to the Super Bowl against the Packers and against the Lions because Chase Young was playing football for us instead of Cleveland Farrell. Cleveland Farrell is a hell of a football player. People hate on him because he was drafted so high by the Raiders and he shouldn't have been, but that doesn't matter. That if he had been drafted in the second where he should have gone, that he would have been viewed as a major impact football player because he's amazing as set in the edge, and it's just what that defense needs when you talk about who they traded away, because technically that's the trade deadline of last year, but that does leak into stuff that you need to fix this offseason. So you trade away two defensive linemen and you add all over the place.
Yeah, and I knocked them a little bit for losing Curtis Samuel and not really giving him a replacement. Kendall Fuller, not really giving a replacement when I know you brought in Mike Sanders still, but that's a slot and he's a rookie, and Kendall's an outside and plays really, really well as a vet. And then Cam Curl losing a young safety to I believe it was the Rams hurts a little bit as well. So it's an A-. Again, you improve in a lot of different positions: quarterback, running back, center, edge, defensive tackle, linebackers. You do take a couple of hits on wide receiver, corner, and safety for those.
Yeah, and when you look at what a certain team who we haven't given a draft grade yet to, so I won't spoil it, but they might have picked one pick ahead of the Commanders in this draft. What you look at what they did offensively to put talent around their young quarterback, their young signal caller, compared to what the Washington Commander football team did for their young signal caller.
Yep.
I really like what that other team did for their pick better than this. So, but it's a new outlook for the Washington Commanders. It just straight up is. Everything that's happened the last 20 years, you throw right out the window because Dan Snyder was a piece of garbage and he's gone now. So
absolutely.
Although new owners aren't always a good thing. Look at what the Carolina Panthers are doing with that dude. So that's not always a guarantee, but they got the right people in the front office. They got a good head coach, et cetera, et cetera.
I don't think the Washington owner or GM is going to walk into to a restaurant and demand on who should they let draft. You heard about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, crazy.
Tepper, he's an amazing guy.
Yeah. Last team in the NFC East, the forgotten team, the New York Giants. I gave a C+ to, with their key additions being John Runyon, Malik Neighbors, Brian Burns, Tyler Nubin, and Andrew Phillips, a couple of rookies to make an impact on a pretty poor team. And then you do lose Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney, two guys who are younger guys who are huge impact guys for your team. So I gave him a C+. Another thing is, you didn't really do a whole lot with the quarterback position outside of getting Drew Lock. If that's what you wanted to improve on, and that's your improvisation for it, not getting a quarterback in the draft, but you have Drew Lock. Sure, Daniel Jones is not going to work out most likely. I mean, we saw him work out for 1 year. He got his $40 million a year. But there's an out to his contract, and he's probably gone after this year. So not a whole lot of improvements around, and the losses that they did take were pretty significant in those just two categories, those two positions. So a C plus is what I gave New York.
Actually, I gave him a B plus. Brian Burns with Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence. That's a hell of a defensive line trio. I love that. They did bring back Devin Singletary. I know you're going to roll your eyes at Devin Singletary, but if you think about his most successful years, it was when the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills was one Brian Daboll. So he has been successful there. Malik Neighbors, obviously a great addition there. I also really like Tyler Nubin and Andrew Phillips. I really love everything the Giants did. It just sucks that their quarterback sucks. So how good can your team possibly be when your quarterback situation is not any good? So B plus for me, because they've now put the talent around this team to where if they suck next year and they have to draft a quarterback high, there is a chance for them to be coming into a pretty good opportunity.
Yeah. We spent so much time on the NFC East. Let's move on to the NFC North with the Chicago Bears. Drew, do you want to go ahead and kick off Chicago's? I know you were kind of mentioning them before, so why don't you go ahead and take us there?
Yeah, Chicago is an A plus to me. That's very, very simple. I love everything Chicago's done, even dating back to next year. I guess you can. Let me take it back. I'm gonna give him an A. And we'll take away the plus just because of the DeAndre Swift bullshit. But you get rid of Justin
Wait,
Fields.
hold on. If DeAndre Swift isn't the first player in free agency signed, is it an A plus? If he's like
the sixth, it's an A plus. But you're like, DeAndre Swift is our number. Like, yo,
yeah.
Who is bidding for that fool? Like, who is like? I mean, and Josh Jacobs becomes available later. Like Saquon Barkley is available. All these players are available.
Aaron
and you're
Jones,
like,
Joe Mixon.
DeAndre Swift is he gets my juices flowing. But Keenan Allen, obviously the amazing wide receiver they drafted in Rome Odunze, Caleb Williams. The defense they already have. You re-signed Jalen Johnson. I'm not going to say anything about Kevin Byard. I think he's overrated. I love the Gerald Everett thing, et cetera, et cetera. It's an A for me.
It's also an A for me. It's actually an A plus. It's tied with the Steelers, your favorite team. And if you want, I could say A plus plus to make you feel a little bit better. The thing is they didn't get worse at any position. They didn't get worse. They only got better, and they got significantly better at certain positions. Quarterback, wide receiver, running back. They made a small change, and it does make them better. He is better than Khalil Herbert. And then getting Kevin Byard is better than what they had at safety last year. So
Khalil Herbert led the league in yards per carry, just so you know, 2 years ago.
Congrats. 2 years ago. There you go.
And he averaged like 8.6 yards per carry.
Yeah, 2 years ago when he was a backup.
Speaking
Tony
of backup,
had like over 6 yards a carry, but he didn't do it last year.
Speaking of backup, you know why it's an A and not an A plus? Do you know who the backup quarterbacks on the roster are?
It's that like
some
Taylor...
guy named Bagel, Tyson Bagel, Badgett, and then nothing. Like you couldn't have brought in a Jimmy Garoppolo. You couldn't have brought in like who's that dude that was the Saints backup for like 47 years? His brother played in the league also.
Oh yeah. I don't that one guy who doesn't have any pocket presence.
I'm gonna look him up. You got to bring in somebody to teach Caleb how to be an NFL pro, and the fact that you didn't, I think, was a little bit of a misstep.
Ryan Tannehill's still out there. He would probably be a pretty good mentor for Caleb.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. But again, they didn't get worse at any single position. And again, a lot of the positions that they had to get better in, they got significantly better in. And they surrounded their number one overall pick with a lot of talent. So setting him up for success is a big reason why he's getting into
Brett
the A plus.
Rippin,
Oh yeah,
Tyson
yeah.
Bagel Badgel Bagnet, and Brett Rippin.
Yeah, so A plus for them. I do have. I think this whole division is rated decently high. So the next team that we have up is the Detroit Lions, where I gave them an A. Again, you don't really have any significant losses for the Detroit Lions, but you have a lot of key additions that are going to play a big impact. DJ Reader, huge. Kevin Zeitler, huge. Taron Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw coming in as rookies when you needed corners pretty badly is going to be a big improvement. So I gave them an A. Again, guard, tackle, corner, you all got better in those positions. So I gave them an A for the Detroit Lions, who may or may not ever get back to the conference championship, according to Mr. Dan Campbell. What do you
Luke
give Detroit?
McCown,
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Dallas Cowboy. Who are we talking about?
The Detroit Lions.
Sorry. Okay, I gave the Detroit Lions an A plus.
Okay.
I loved everything the Detroit Lions did. I got to tell you what, the Detroit Lions offseason and the Philadelphia Eagles offseason is why I gave your team and my team such terrible grades, because both these teams, which are competitive and going to compete for the Super Bowl next year, compete to make it to the Super Bowl, because I already got the script and the Kansas City Chiefs are winning again, had excellent off seasons.
Right.
And I apologize because I didn't listen, but they lose Gardner Johnson, obviously. But I love DJ Reader, Carlton Davis, and Kevin, what's his face last name? I'm not going to try to say it. Zeitler, thank you. Terrion Arnold, Ennis Rinkstraw, you hand your extensions to Goff and Amon Ra and your star tackle. Super Bowl window is wide open. It just is what it is. I loved everything they did.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Again, I think this whole division did decently well outside of maybe one team who kind of did okay, just looking at some of the pieces they lost and what they gained back for it. And moving on to that team is the Green Bay Packers, where I only gave them a C plus. I didn't really see a whole lot of what they did. So you lose Aaron Jones, you get Josh Jacobs, who are, I think, right there level wise with each other in terms of talent at the running back position.
Josh Jacobs is younger, though.
That's true. John Runyon, Devondre Campbell, you also lose. And then you get Xavier McKinney, which was a big part of you needed a safety. You needed it really bad. And you went out and you got one of the better younger safeties in the league. And then you drafted Jordan Morgan to finally get some type of replacement at the tackle position. So
And who else did they draft? Linebacker.
Huh?
Linebacker.
Oh, I don't know.
Edgerrin Cooper.
Fuck you. I didn't even want to say it. But that's the thing, is like that's your replacement for Devondre Campbell, and I'm not the biggest believer in Edgerrin Cooper. So
yeah, but how much do you need out of him? Devondre Campbell was signed to be a backup this offseason. So
yeah,
like the 49ers signed him. They wanted Eric Kendricks. He changed his mind. And they signed Devondre Campbell to, hey, play a couple games till Dre Greenlaw gets healthy. So how much production do you really need to replace? Javon Bullard. And the Darnell Savage thing, is that even a loss? Your safety play was trash last year.
No, that's a gain. No, like your safety room got better. Your linebacker room got a little bit worse. Your guards got a little bit worse, but your tackles got a little bit better. So
and when you and me were doing
kind of a lot like a wash.
When you and I were doing the mock drafts, we're like, "Fuck, who do we draft for the Packers? They have everything they need. Like, what do we, Now, all this to say, I gave them the same grade because they didn't do anything this offseason that really. But the thing about a young team that's ahead of schedule, is there's only so much you can do to get better when there's. Josh Jacobs, I think, is fantastic over Aaron Jones, because Aaron Jones was getting old and unhealthy. You bring in Josh Jacobs, he's a beast. You upgrade the safety position, but you got a million wide receivers. Already got a young tight end. You got a young corner. You Bakhtiari, you replace that. Is he still a free agent?
David Bakhtiari, yeah.
Yeah. He's probably going to go sign with the Jets. And it's just you were ahead of schedule last year, and you maintained, you improved. Another offseason for Jordan Love, and so to me, what'd you give him? I'm at a C plus.
I give him a C plus as well.
Yeah, I mean it's cool, and that's not a bad thing for Packers fans. Like, the
Yep.
Packers are good; they're going to be good. They're going to take another step this season. It's just you didn't do much in the offseason to improve the team, but the team was already good. Like, it was already
Yep.
ahead of schedule. You're now entering your window. It's fine.
Absolutely. The last team in the NFC North is the Minnesota Vikings, who I gave a B plus to. To me, they're really close to that A minus range, and there's only one reason why they didn't, and that's losing your quarterback. I know there's not much that you could do about that, especially with some of the contract stuff you didn't want to offer them, and then on top of that, the reports coming out that Kirk knew that the Vikings were going to take a quarterback early, and that was one of the things that factored him in not re-signing. And then the Falcons do it anyways without his knowledge until they're about to do it.
Sheesh.
So you also lose Ezra Cleveland, guard. You also lose Danielle Hunter and Jordan Hicks. You do get Aaron Jones, which your running back. Alexander Madison played fucking horrible last year, so big ups on that one. Jonathan Grenard comes and replaces Danielle Hunter, who is younger and is still talented. Dallas Turner is going to go ahead and try to fill those shoes as well. Blake Cashman at the linebacker position, trying to replace Jordan Hicks, who was very good for the Texans, and I thought the Texans should have brought back. Shaq
And
Griffin.
Dallas Turner.
Yeah, I said, Dallas Turner as well.
Did I miss him?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was so focused on the fact that you haven't mentioned Sam Darnold yet.
Yeah, Shaq Griffin at corner, Andrew Van Ginkel, and then of course JJ McCarthy as well to come in to try to place Kirk Cousins. So I gave him a B plus. Again, they were really close on the A minus stuff, really really close, but B plus is kind of where I landed as well. So, again, Sam Darnold for Drew and all the Sam Darnold stands.
Yeah, I went with a B minus for them. JJ McCarthy is not going to be as good as Kirk Cousins this season. It's just a fact. Kirk's a really good quarterback.
Yep.
So your team's definitely going to take a step backwards. They could have traded Danielle Hunter at the trade deadline last year. Plenty of people were interested, and they decided to hold on to him for some reason. Now you do replace him. You get Grenard, you get Van Ginkel, but you could have added picks on top of that. So it's just a little bit of a...
and you did give away a lot of picks this year too, like to move up for Dallas Turner. And now next year you almost have no picks. You have like a first and a fifth.
But you were going to move up to get JJ anyway, right? Or you were going to move up to get Drake May at that spot anyway. So you get your quarterback at number 10. Trading up for Dallas Turner is... This is going to be an interesting thing. I mean, we could both be wrong, but I feel like we're going to stare this thing in the face and be like, yeah, duh. How did us sitting on our couches watching this identify this, and NFL teams were so high on this guy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is our last team for the NFC North. Now let's go ahead and move on to the NFC South, the worst division in football. I don't even think it's very close. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you want to go ahead and grab them first?
I thought their offseason was fine. I gave them a B plus. Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Levante David. They just re-signed Antoine Winfield. They decided to not re-sign Shaq Barrett. They let Devin White walk, trade away Carlton Davis. It basically, it looked like they identified what they wanted to do. And they did it. Graham Barton's a good player. So I guess the draft for me is this is the team that made the playoffs last year. So they're competing for that again. And there was some teams in the NFC that got a lot better. And I just think that their spot in the playoffs last year, you're now competing with you're trying to hold off a Packers team, right? Because Detroit's going to win that division. You have to try to hold off the Bears this season. And I know that's crazy to say, but that's a hell of a team without Caleb. If Caleb's just okay, like honestly, if Caleb can be Derek Carr, if Caleb can be Jimmy Garoppolo, if Caleb can be Baker Mayfield this season, then the Bears are going to make the playoffs because their defense is so damn good. So I'm just not sure. I'm glad you re-signed the guys. I'm glad you got rid of the guys that you didn't want. But what did you do to take your team to the next level? And I don't think they did that.
And that's kind of where I'm sitting too. I'm actually a whole grade below you is at a C plus, is a team that only made it in because your division was this bad. You brought back, again, like you said, the guys that you wanted to bring back. But even your draft wasn't super significant. Graham Barton is probably the biggest addition because Ryan Jensen goes forward and he retires, which is a big deal. He didn't really play last year. I'm pretty sure he was hurt all last year anyway. So bringing Graham Barton to play the center position is, again, massive. But you didn't, like you said, do a whole lot to really go to the next level. And if there's a team in this division that does take it to the next level, like Atlanta, you're going to have a hard time getting in, and you might not because you're looking to play for that wild card. And like you're already pointing out, there's Green Bay, Dallas / Philly, depending on who wins the division, they're going to be competing. Washington, for fuck's sake, might even fucking compete depending on how good Jaden Daniels is. Like, there's teams here that are going to be highly competitive. Chicago Bears are going to be really, really competitive this year. And Tampa Bay didn't do enough to move the needle for me. So I kind of sit at a C+ for them. The Atlanta Falcons are next up, and they're really difficult because they had a really good free agency, but then like a not the best draft. And I know people just absolutely just
Did they have a
bomb
good
the
free
draft
agency?
between Kirk and then Darnell Mooney, guys like that they brought in to just kind of beef up the offense a little bit for Kirk. They did okay there, but then again, the draft just didn't go the best. And I'm higher on their draft than other people are. Other people are giving them Fs and Ds while I'm giving them a C. And that's where I'm going to kind of land for them, except I'm going to give them a C+. And it's big because of Kirk Cousins. But outside of the Kirk Cousins and then the Darnell Mooney thing, which getting another weapon for Kirk Cousins is definitely big. It's kind of subpar past that. The Falcons didn't. I mean, the Michael Penix thing is just, it hurts them so bad. And I like Michael Penix a lot. It was my number 3 quarterback on my board. I like him. But the Falcons just aren't the place right now. Obviously in like 3 years when he's starting, we might have a different conversation. But right now at the moment, he's at a C+. And again, he only gets the plus because of signing your quarterback to, again, in a bad division to get you at the top and make it to the playoffs. Only reason that you're going to C+.
Yeah, they got massive holes on their defense and secondary, and even on the defensive line. They moved up to take Rook. I know you love the dude, but talking, conventional wisdom is that they way overdrafted him at that spot.
Yeah.
And their draft is probably fine if they don't sign Kirk. But then you signed Kirk and you add in Michael Penix, and you had 5 or 6 top flight corners that were there at that point. You could have traded down to 15 to 20 and added more picks back and still taken a corner or a wide receiver. So this might be I think this is honestly going to look a lot like the Minnesota Vikings did, man. I think that the Falcons are going to put up 30 points a week and still lose games because their defense is so terrible. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I'm excited to watch the Falcons, honestly. I think there's going to be a lot of highlight-worthy plays with their offensive talent and Kirk now, assuming he comes back healthy. So they're going to be a fun team to watch, but I don't expect them to make much noise.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Again, this is not a very good division, and this not very good division isn't doing a whole lot to position themselves better to win games and try to win. Again, a bad division outside the Falcons. That's just because they have their quarterback. A team that has their quarterback, but he's just a lot younger. The Carolina Panthers. Drew, do you want to go ahead and take the Carolina Panthers?
Why you stick me with the trash?
Because you like trash.
They hired a head coach who I couldn't even tell you anything about him. So there's that. You lose Brian Burns, you lose Frankie Louvu, Jeremy Chin's gone. They absolutely screwed up the Brian Burns situation.
They could have gotten 3 firsts last year from the Rams, and then they settle with, what was it, a second? It doesn't look great.
And then you roll with Xavier Legette, obviously Jonathan Brooks in the draft, and Jatavion Sanders. So now all the exciting things you did in the offseason were to draft picks. I don't like any of it. I honestly like this franchise is going nowhere and nowhere fast.
It's they're walking, but they're walking on a treadmill. That's the issue with them. So what was your grade for the Carolina Panthers?
This is C minus for me.
Yeah, I'm right in the same position as at a C minus. I know you love Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis because they're guards. And I do like them protecting Bryce Young as much as possible. I like them bringing in Deontay Johnson for more weapons for Bryce. I like all of that stuff. And again, Xavier Legette, another weapon. But the Jonathan Brooks thing feels weird. Like you have Miles Sanders, and I know Miles Sanders isn't perennial all-star, all-pro type guy, but Jonathan Brooks is coming off of an ACL injury, and you could have gotten someone else to make it impact more significant than the running back position when you already have someone there. But I like the Jatavion Sanders thing, but unfortunately you lose a lot. Like you already highlighted, Brian Burns, Frankie Louvu. There's your pass rush right there. Those two guys are like your two main pass rush guys. So you kind of lost in me being super late on the Jadavion Clowney thing. They bring him in, but you still lose two young guys, and one old guy is not going to replace two young guys at the end of the day. Jeremy Chin has kind of been in and out of, is he a Carolina Panther? Is he going to get moved? Is he not? Finally, he's gone after becoming a free agent. So that saga finally feels over. But honestly, outside of protecting Bryce Young and giving a couple weapons, there's a lot of things on this team I feel like could have been done. And one of those things was, especially with that Jonathan Brooks pick, you could have gone somewhere else, especially on the defensive side of the ball when you just traded away your corner and Dante Jackson, which, again, I know he was kind of up and down last year. He still played decent, but who else are you going to play? Your injury-riddled corner that got drafted a couple of years ago? I mean, what do we – I'm just a little confused on what we're doing with the Carolina Panthers.
They're doing nothing. They're doing nothing.
And that's the issue currently. And the last team in this division is the New Orleans Saints. Again, man, this division's really rough to talk about.
Really? I liked it. I liked this offseason. You didn't like this?
The division in general is hard to talk about. They have the best grade. Yeah. Absolutely. They're just, it's just the whole division is just really rough to talk about. It's like almost like a downer. Like we're talking about all these teams and getting hyped about them and getting
Don't worry,
fired
we get to talk about the 49ers next.
Yeah, right. The Saints, I gave a B to.
I agree.
I think moving on from Michael Thomas is the right move. I wish you could have brought back Jameis Winston. I wish that was there. The question mark on their tackle, Ryan Ramczyk. The question marks on Ryan Ramczyk is really concerning moving into the season. Luckily, you brought in Talisi Fuanga to go ahead and replace him potentially, but the only issue is now who are you going to play on the other side? Trevor fucking Penning, because he's fucking awful. And I will stand on this forever. I said he was going to be a bad draft pick, and look at that. He's fucking horrible. So Fuanga is a great draft pick, and stealing Kool-Aid McKinstry in the second is probably one of my favorite picks in this draft. And then don't sleep on the Spencer Rattler thing, because he could potentially be a future star for New Orleans, because they don't like to lose, and they're in that purgatory of like,
he's going to start for them next year.
16, so it wouldn't surprise me.
He's not going to start the season, but after Derek Carr does his Derek Carr shit for 8 to 10 games, they'll switch to him, midway through.
Yeah, so that's where I sit with New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean they lost. Andres Pete kind of sucks, but not. Yeah, I'm not saying he sucks, but losing him kind of sucks. But losing Michael Thomas and Jameis Winston don't mean anything. They weren't going to let Jameis start anyway. You bring in Chase Young and Willie Gay, extend the Honey Badger.
Yeah.
And they
how much money did they give Chase Young? I don't remember.
He didn't barely make any type of money.
Oh, okay, good.
But it's just one of those teams that's kind of like they're like the New Orleans Saints are like mayonnaise, man. Like,
yeah,
they're not. You know what? They're like butter. You know what I mean? We got some teams out here that are making compound butter. They're adding spices and herbs to it and slicing it on the steaks, and then The New Orleans Saints, they got their rice cooker out. They put some rice in it. They put some butter in it. They cooked it. They're buttered rice. Like, congratulations. Fucking New Orleans Saints.
Right.
Until they fire their head coach and bring in an offensive-minded head coach, it's not going to matter anyway. But I actually like their offseason. I don't mean to hate on them too much. And, Spencer Rattler has had his ups and downs in terms of his prospects and how good people thought they were going to be in the NFL. But honestly, you don't get any more blah than Derek Carr. He's been absolutely horrendous as a New Orleans Saint. I think his ADOT is like 1.8 yards. Like, he doesn't throw the ball anywhere. It's just, there was an argument to be made a couple years ago. People look at Jimmy Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, and who's that freaking pretty boy over there in Dallas, Dak Prescott. And they were like, man, this is the second tier of quarterbacks. These guys are all really, really good. And now you're looking at it. Jimmy Garoppolo's on steroids and got cut. Derek Carr only has a job because that organization is incompetent. Kirk Cousins is a what's the step below superstar? Like, the best quarterback to never be the best quarterback in the league. Like, his stats are mind blowing. And I think that, Dak Prescott's no longer in this conversation. He was second MVP in MVP voting last year. So he's merged out of that conversation. But man, Derek Carr is just, it's crazy. A dude left the Raiders and got worse. That never happens. People leave the Raiders. Right. But whatever him and Darren Waller were on together over there, it just obviously that whole thing has come crashed into the ground. So,
well, whatever was in the water at that time.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to our last division today, and that is going to be the NFC
Arizona.
West.
Let's go. What you got for Arizona?
Arizona, I think, made
Did I mess up your the way you were going?
Yeah, it's okay though.
Good, because you fucked me. I just want to go to the team that's at the top of my list, Arizona.
Arizona made a lot of moves, and I think that it warrants them getting a B plus, maybe even an A minus. I've been teetering on this one, and I've switched it a couple of times today, moving it around. And the reason why is because they made a lot of moves, and it's hard to grade a team that's really, 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 really piss poor. Like, this is one of the worst teams in the league, like bottom 4, 3, 2. Like, Chicago got the number 1 pick in the draft, but they're not a bottom 3 team. Like, that's because Carolina's there with them. But bringing in guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Max Melton, and Darius Robinson to this team. Also adding Jonah Williams to an offensive line that really needs the help, so Kyler Murray doesn't have to run around all over the place, which he's probably going to because he can't see over the offensive line. So maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't. And then boosting up their cornerback position with a Sean Murphy Bunting in free agency as well. I think warrants a B plus, but I think it's skewed a little bit because they're kind of a poor team. Would I want a not Jonah Williams? I like Jonah Williams. Like a Sean Murphy Bunting on like a better team as like a team that's stacked with corners? Probably not, but it boosts up a corner room that's really, really bad. So I think this is probably a B plus for me.
B plus for me too. They're entering a rebuild with a new regime and everything like that, and they added obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. Kyler Murray's still a star. People forget about him because he was hurt.
Absolutely.
And they had a good draft. So there's not much more you can ask out of an offseason for a team that's not expected to compete next year. I think they're going to win some games next year and surprise some people. I mean, hey,
I absolutely
they surprised a couple teams last year, if I remember correctly. So why can't they surprise some teams this year?
Yep. And they beat the Eagles too.
Come for the analysis, stay for the Eagles. Yeah,
yeah. See, I don't give a fuck. They beat the fucking Eagles. That's my cat is freaking out right now. Next team, Drew. Since this is your division, who do you want to cover next? You want to take the reins on the next one?
Yeah, I want to hear your Rams grade.
My Rams grade?
Yeah, let's go with the Rams.
Why do I feel like you're like kind of, I feel like you're trying to pressure me because of the guard thing?
I just know that based off of our conversation about the Rams and what they did this offseason previously, there might be some disagreements here.
It's an A.
Disagreements are good for the podcast.
Yeah, it's an A for me, and I think it's a pretty easy A. If Aaron Donald doesn't retire, I think it's really close to an A plus. The pieces that they brought in on defense, their entire secondary got so much better with Cam Curl and Darius Williams. They brought in another corner as well, and it's slipping my mind currently. But the corners that they brought in, the safeties that they brought in, along with Jonah Jackson and Kevin Dotson, your favorite guards on the planet, protecting an old decrepit Matt Stafford is really important. Also bringing in some of my favorite players in the draft in Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. And then
Blake
the
Corum.
only thing that's confusing is the Blake Corum thing for me.
No,
I'm not.
it's not confusing. All he does is take fucking handoffs and score fucking touchdowns. Do you hate touchdowns, Jacob? I know you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. Do you hate touchdowns?
Kyren Williams scores touchdowns.
He's a different type of back. Kyren Williams is a freaking speedy speedster, and Blake Corum's a sledgehammer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I get it.
I know your team's trying to eliminate the running back position, but some teams still value it, okay?
I think that with all the additions that the Rams made, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that it's really important for them to not rely on the offense as much this year. As explosive it is probably going to be, but making those additions on the defense kind of shows you their hand right now. We want to be a really heavy defensive team. Yes, we still want to score a ton of points, and we want to take advantage of the time that we have with Matt Stafford, having an elite wide receiver, potentially if he can get back to 100% form, and Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, two running backs that are gonna crush it, and an offensive line that's stout. We want to just take advantage of the young guys we have now before paying them, bring in a bunch of defensive guys, stack up the defense. Let's go to work. So I think the Rams, are going to be incredibly competitive this year with the 49ers. So the Rams are getting an A.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I think the Rams could have done is maybe brought in a backup plan at quarterback. They don't really have one. Carson Wentz last year.
Didn't they sign Jimmy Garoppolo?
Oh, they did sign Jimmy, didn't they?
Yeah, okay.
That's not much of a backup plan. He's suspended the first 4 games of the season. I forgot about that. Fine. Jimmy Garoppolo, still. Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't think steps in and takes the reins to a divisional championship type expectation for the Rams here. Right? Like they could compete for that type of thing, right? I don't think Jimmy fills in there. So but I don't know. Honestly, I would kind of had a little bit of a nightmare all offseason that they were going to bring in like Jameis Winston, that type of player. And I'm a big Jameis fan. I don't know if anybody knows that. I don't know. I don't think he's really ever gotten his fair shake at anything. I know he had some years with the Bucs, but yeah, they had a good offseason. It sucks. They didn't have as good as an offseason as the Eagles did, but whatever.
No, I would disagree with that. Okay, go ahead, take the reins on the 49ers. What are the 49ers for you?
I give the 49ers a D.
Okay.
How much higher were you?
Not that much higher.
Like what the best thing that the 49ers did was sign Leonard Floyd, I guess. They signed Gross Matos, Jordan Elliott, but they also lost Eric Armstead and Javon Kinlaw. Now,
I saw you guys and us as like the same grades, pretty much. Like losing a lot, not getting a whole lot back in return.
Javon Kinlaw was a bum.
One splash guy.
So yeah, that's fine. Leonard Floyd, I think, helps us. Chase Young sucked. Losing Cleveland Farrell sucks. So all the players we lost on the defensive side, defensive line, we replaced. I really like the Leonard Floyd signing. I think that's underrated. I think that's going to help us.
But, I think he's going to be pretty good.
We signed Campbell, but that's because Dre is hurt. So there's that. We brought in, we drafted a corner who's going to play slot corner for us. Generally, rookies don't step in and have a ton of success at slot corner, but whatever. If we can find somebody to play slot corner to keep Diamador Lenore outside, that's a win for us. Hufanga, getting him back from injury, that's going to be a plus. Pearsall, whatever. Like, I've watched a lot of tape on him now. The dude is an absolute stud at contested catches. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that our offense hasn't had previously. Deebo Samuel doesn't go up and snatch the ball. Brandon Ayuk's always wide the hell open, so he doesn't go up and snatch the ball. But
Right.
the fact of the matter is we have the most expensive wide receiver room in the NFL, and we don't throw the fucking football. So unless Kyle Shanahan's going to come out, listen, if Brock Purdy's going to throw the football 30 to 40 times a game next season, then I'll shut up about everything we're going to do. But just the way that we've continued to build this team, I think we could have let the Pearsall thing go and drafted a right tackle, which could potentially be a left tackle of the future, moved up to do something like that, and I'd have been a little bit happier just because of Pearsall is great in theory, but when you're talking about the offense that we run, it just doesn't make sense now that we have two. And I get that this is the idea that we're moving off of Debo
Right.
next season. Fine. But like again, what he does well is not the way Kyle Shanahan has run his offense in the past. So unless all of a sudden he's going to have this huge, and the other thing that's a little underrated here is you bring in a first-time defensive coordinator, which is fine. I'm cool with that because the 49ers defense is like Fred Warner runs that defense. It's fine. They're going to be fine. But you also bring in Brandon Staley for
Yeah.
what? In case this dude doesn't work out, then why the fuck did we just not give Brandon Staley the job? Like, I know
Yeah.
Brandon Staley's going to bring in some different concepts and he's going to do a couple different things, and you're going to see a different wrinkles with the 49ers defense this year, which should make us better. But it's a little suspicious when it would be like if, hey, we're going to give you here, Jacob, here you go. You're now the foreman. You're now running work. And then when you show up at the job site on Monday morning, your dad is standing over there in the corner. What the fuck is he
Right.
doing here? Like, I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be running this job. Oh, so if I fuck up and suck, you're going to give it to my dad? That's kind of what it feels like with Brandon Staley. Like, he's just hanging out. Like, he's just like, okay, I'm here. I'm watching what's going on. But if things don't work out, they're just like, boom, you're the defensive coordinator. And maybe they were upset because they didn't have that on the staff last year when Wilkes was not doing what he needed to do. But still, how are you going to be successful when Plan B is sitting right next to you?
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. I think the most significant addition outside of Leonard Floyd that happened for you guys was Dominic Pooney. I think he's gonna make. I think he's gonna make an immediate impact on your guys' team. Obviously, you highlighted everything really well, so I'm not gonna re-chalk it all up.
I would fucking hope so.
I just the only thing is just I think Pooney's gonna make a pretty big splash impact this year for you guys.
Yeah, he's gotten some rave reviews at rookie training camp, which I'm just gonna put this out here. Rookie training camp doesn't fucking matter. They're playing against players that aren't even NFL players, like
Yeah,
players that aren't even undrafted free agents. Like, they're not even getting invites. They're just out there for bodies. But there was a lot of talk about him that this may be a potential tackle development player, a player that could slide to tackle eventually, which was not something that I read much about leading up to the draft with him. But then again, the offense that we run and the agile nature that our tackles need to be, it makes sense that he's not, a 360-pound guard. So,
yeah. And that is all of our offseason grades.
I know I was going to fuck you up by going, poor Seahawks. They don't even get to get mentioned on this.
Oh, they did, dude. See, oh my gosh. They don't deserve it, but wow, I cannot believe why don't you go ahead and I totally exit out of my dock because I have my games on another one. Why don't you go ahead and start off?
So you lose Pete Carroll, but you replace him with Mike McDonald, who is one of the best defensive minds in the game. You lose bigger names than you added, Jordan Brooks, Bobby Wagner, Damian Lewis. Obviously Leonard Williams comes back, so that's good. Their draft, Byron Murphy was cool. We both love Christian Haynes.
Yeah,
but the thing is, Seattle didn't do anything. You're not competing with the Rams. You're not competing with the 49ers. You're still trotting Geno Smith out there. So, whatever. Tapioca pudding here.
Yeah, I feel like this is another team that's kind of revealing their hand like the Rams are. They want to be a heavy defensive team, and bringing in a Byron Murphy and a Byron Murphy is going to be pretty significant. Re-signing, obviously, Leonard Williams is going to be inevitable, especially with the draft capital that you gave up to sign him. To me, this is a B-, especially losing. I know Bobby Wagner is old, but he also made a huge impact on your defense. Jordan Brooks, impact on the defense. Damian Lewis, guard for your quarterback. So you're losing a couple of pieces, and then it's still kind of weird because you bring in a good defensive minded guy and Mike McDonald coming over from Baltimore, and you're losing some of the defensive pieces. It's a little strange, but again, Byron Murphy comes in with a replacement for some of the pass rush, and then Christian Haynes comes in for a replacement for Damian Lewis, which again, I love Christian Haynes, so maybe you're going to run the ball just into the ground because Christian Haynes is a great run blocker. So also, I would like to see a little bit better development next year out of their left tackle since he took a step back. So it's a B minus for me, just because, like you said, didn't do a whole lot, and you're kind of stuck in the middle of this division where, like you said, teams get better, Arizona gets better, and the Rams get better, and you're not better than the 49ers. So are you finishing last place in this division?
Yes.
And that's going to be nail in the coffin for Geno, who is already, 1 foot out the door. So
Yeah,
B
they got the
minus.
worst quarterback in the division. They're going to finish last in the division, which is funny because that might be 7-9. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, now that's our offseason grade, since I was just going to completely skip
So
over
to be clear, you
Seattle.
think that the Pittsburgh Steelers had the best offseason?
Them, and let me go back to my grades. There was one more. And the Bears.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep. And then I think the Lions are really close to them too. So the NFL schedule got released yesterday as of recording this.
That's my air
And
horns.
dude, the schedule, a couple of these weeks are great. Week 1 specifically is like the most insane week 1, I feel like. And it was pretty exciting to look over this again. I told you, like, I had a ton of games I was looking forward to. I put like 30 games down that I was like, oh, this could be interesting. This could be interesting. This could be interesting. This could be interesting. So I do have my top 10. I have a couple of honorable mentions too. I don't know if you have any. Again, I told you I had a ton, so I'm not sure if you had a couple that didn't make your top 10, but you were like, oh man, this almost made it in.
Well, you asked me how I wanted to do this, and I originally wanted to go, all right, let's pick the best game week by week. But then I sat down to look at week 1, and I was like, oh, fuck, Ravens, Chiefs, Packers, Eagles, 49ers, Jets. Like, that's not going to work. I'm not axing these great games. So,
yep, absolutely. So, a couple of honorable mentions, if you don't have any, is I have the just looking down my list, I have Ravens at Cowboys week 3. I have Commanders at Bucks week 1, and that's just Jaden Daniels his debut. Bears versus Titans week 1, that's Caleb Williams' debut. Texans at Chiefs week 16. I could see that being huge for seeding. And then my number 11 is Eagles versus Packers week 1. So I think that one's going to be big as well for setting the tone for the rest of the years for both of those teams.
All right, perfect. So none of my top 10 landed on this list. And just to clear this, I did not take in the weeks into consideration. I didn't take any of this into consideration. I sat this down as Drew Taylor sitting his fat ass on his couch and he wants to watch enjoyable football. What are the top 10 games that if I could request the time to sit on my couch and watch, which games would those be? Outside of obviously all the 49ers games.
Right. Okay. Drew, do you want to tell me your 10 through 6? And then we can, I could say, oh, I have those ones in the same spots. And then we could kind of just discuss a couple of them. So 10 through 6, go ahead.
Okay. Number 10, Falcons at Vikings. I think this one is obvious. You got Kirk Cousins against the Minnesota Vikings. Duh.
Okay.
I think this is, in terms of sitting down and watching this game, I think this is obviously very clearly why people are going to want to watch this game.
Okay. I didn't have that one on my list.
What? It's Kirk Cousins, dog.
Yeah, I didn't have it on there.
Okay. This is the great thing about dropping it down to a top 10, and we may not have. Number 9, I got Harbaugh going to LA to face Harbaugh. That's going to be the Ravens versus the Chargers. Obviously, for the most obvious reasons, we got brother on brother here. The last time we saw it was in the Super Bowl. Fuck all of you guys. And, I'm excited to see it again. I don't think the Chargers are going to have much in the way of putting anything up against the Ravens. This might be a massacre. but it's always good to see Jim Harbaugh throw a fit on the sideline. So I'm excited for this.
Another one I didn't have on my list.
Let's go.
Number 8.
49ers, they go east to Miami and they play the Dolphins. This could be a very high scoring game. Anytime you get the 49er Shanahan offense against each other, it seems to be fireworks. Obviously, Mike McDaniel has a ton of the 49er Shanahan concepts, but he's taken it to the next level. It's also one of the games that makes me most nervous about our schedule, and I'm very excited to see this game.
This is one that just missed my honorable mentions. I had it on there. It just wasn't in my top 10 or my honorable mentions. Yep. Number 7.
Number 7. Did you say Texans at the Jets?
Did I say that?
Yeah.
In my honorable mentions?
Yeah.
No, I said Texans at Chiefs.
Texans at Chiefs. Okay. Number 7, I got the Texans going to New York to play the Jets.
Okay. I didn't have that one in my top 10 either.
Honestly, I could have listed 10 games that all had CJ Stroud in them. So it's just, this was a way to get CJ Stroud on it. I'm not that excited to see him play the Chiefs because I think the Chiefs are going to dominate them, and I don't want to see him lose. So not that great.
And number 6, let's see if we're going to have like 1 through 10 through 6 matchup, maybe.
Probably not. Number 6, I got the Eagles and Bengals because you got Joe Burrow coming back against that vaunted Eagles defense with that vaunted Eagles secondary. Jalen Hurts, very, very excited to, I tried to do it differently here, trying to think of what good games would be as opposed to just, you know what? My most exciting game to look forward to is the fucking 49ers smashing the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football again. You know what I mean? Like that's boring. Like I left all that shit out. So,
my number 10, which I didn't have that one in there, either. But my number 10 is the Bengals at the Chiefs. I have a bunch of Chiefs in here, a couple Cowboys games, a couple Niners games. So all super competitive games is kind of where
we've seen that game
to.
so many times.
Yeah, but this is Joe Burrow coming back against the Chiefs,
and he's gonna get smacked.
Maybe not. I think it's exciting to see.
No, I'm not disagreeing. I'm not trying to say you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm defending why they're not on my list.
I have another Bengals game at number 9. I have the Patriots at the Bengals because I'm really excited to see Drake May play finally. And I want to see Joe Burrow come back and what he does immediately after having all this time to recover. So I'm excited to see how much he's in form for that next game, that next week. And I'm excited to see what Drake May does with this kind of subpar offense in the very first game that he plays.
A super honorable mention on these, obviously, is going to be all those quarterbacks, their debuts, and watching them because we spent so much time this offseason really diving deep into them and figuring them out. So honestly, anytime one of these young quarterbacks is on TV, even if it's Bo Nix, I'm going to sit down to watch him.
Yep, absolutely. My number 8 is Bears versus Packers, Week 11. Both teams in full stride, trying to make it for some type of wild card. Because again, the assumption is the Lions win the division, but they're vying for the wild card spots, and that's Caleb Williams should be in full midseason form, and so should the entire Packers team. So everyone should be pretty familiar with each other. And there's always seems like a pretty good game when Bears-Packers go back and forth. And with both of them assumingly being good this year, I think it's going to be pretty exciting Week 11, which they do play each other earlier. I just wanted it to be later so they're more familiar with each other going in, especially playing at Lambeau. I think it's going to be cool.
Yeah, and again, I didn't do the taking in the stakes or anything into it, just purely entertainment factor. So Week 1 on this one is definitely one that I had circled originally. When I sat down to do this, I came up with 27 games, just so you know.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy.
And that's outside of like, I love football, so I sit down, I'll watch any football game. Right. Like if you gave me the time, I would watch every 49ers game from start to finish, and I would watch every Cowboys game from start to finish, on top of all the other games that week that were interesting to watch. So,
yep, absolutely. My number 7 is Ravens versus Eagles, Week 13. Again, just two powerhouses going at each other, and at the kind of close to the end of the season at that point, should be in full form. Hopefully no injuries at that point, but it's just two teams going at it. So I think that's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think the Eagles get smashed in that.
I hope so. My number 6 is the Lions at 49ers in week 17.
Let's go.
A
That's
lot of
my number 5. So
that's
we finally got one.
super high stakes game to me, especially just it being a rematch. One, being a rematch. Two, super high stakes for both teams. I think it could be exciting because it's a lot for the Lions to try to prove right before the playoffs start. I
Sure.
think that's huge for both teams.
So give me your
So
number 5 since I just gave you mine.
my number 5 is Texans versus Ravens because I think the seeding week 17 for the first of all, just the teams going at each other is going to be exciting. Second of all, the seeding for that at the end of the year, I think is going to be really, really big.
All right, so I'll give you 4-3-2, and then I'll. All right. So number 4, sorry, I got the Chiefs at Niners. I mean, come on, duh. Super Bowl rematch. Everybody's going to be looking forward to that.
Yep.
Number 2, I got the Chiefs at Bills, and I kind of. I'm sorry, number 3, I got the Chiefs at Bills. Kind of broke my own conventional wisdom here, but let's go. It's the Chiefs and Bills. We got to be excited about that. And number 2, my second most exciting game to watch this season is going to be some Texas on Texas crime when Houston plays the Dallas
Week 11.
Cowboys.
It was really close to my honorable mentions. Yeah, it was really close. Yeah, I think that I got really close. So it was, obviously first I went through the Cowboys schedule. That was the first thing I did, and that was like the second game I put on there. So yeah, I think that's going to be pretty exciting, especially not just because it's Texas versus Texas, but then you have CJ Stroud versus Micah Parsons, and then being buddies now, and I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot to it, so it's going to be pretty exciting. My number 4 is week 1 Ravens at Chiefs.
Yep.
Huge tone setter for the entire season for both teams. Yeah, so that one's pretty obvious. My number 3 is the 49ers versus the Chiefs.
Yes.
My number 2 is the Cowboys at the 49ers.
Does it make you sad? Does it make you sad that I didn't even put that on my list?
No, not at all. I think it's I put it on there. I mean, there's a part of me where it's like, oh, I might go to the game, maybe. Like I might want to go to that. So there's part of that in me, but also it's always cool to watch it, and there's the banter between us two, and it's just kind of the stacked on top. For some people, it's not that exciting. For others, I'm like, oh yeah, it's always the banter. It's maybe going to go watch the game. It's always like this back and forth thing. So it's bragging rights for the entire year going forward until the playoffs. Like that's what the game is basically staked on.
Well, I'll tell you what, if we're not at the game, then we'll probably be sitting on this couch right here watching the game.
Yeah.
It's going to be kind of a bummer if your dad is on the cruise and he can't go. That might take a little bit out of it. But
yeah.
Okay, so give me your number 1 first because I gave you 2 through 10, and I guarantee you we don't have the same number 1.
Probably not. I like the high stakes games for seeding. So my number 1 is the Cowboys versus the Eagles week 17.
That's going to be a great game.
Yeah.
That's going to be a great game.
Those late games between the Cowboys and Eagles are really competitive, and they're always really close, and they always have some type of massive domino effect behind us. So
I'm the absolute opposite of what you just picked.
Okay, wait. Give me what 2 divisions are these teams a part of if it's that left field?
It's not really out of left field.
Okay.
It's NFC versus the AFC, and it's week 1.
AFC versus NFC, and it's week 1?
Yep.
Is it 49ers Jets?
It sure is. Monday Night Football.
Yeah, it is.
Aaron Rodgers return week 1, coming out against the vaunted 49ers defense. I'm not even saying this as a 49er fan. I'm seeing this as Aaron Rodgers' legacy. Like, he's going to come out. They've done all this stuff this offseason to protect him. 49ers defense is going to be flying around. He's coming off an injury. Super fucking exciting. I think honestly the ratings on this Monday Night Football game are going to be bonanzas.
You said Monday night?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. We're talking about this, and honestly, when we get closer, because I feel like this is going to be like a couple of week thing once we talk about it initially, but once we get close to the season, right before the season starts, like predicting like records for everybody is going to be pretty exciting. So we're talking about this now, but it's definitely going to come back up when we're predicting records for everybody. I'm going to have to like put together a flow chart of who plays who.
And the 49ers got fucked once again. They got like the 4th most miles traveled. They're facing 4 teams coming off their bye. And then the team that they finally get they play on Thursday night football. So the next week should be an advantage for them, right? Because they got all that time off. No, because it's the fucking Chiefs. And guess what? The Chiefs get to play the 49ers off their bye. The Chiefs get to take their bye and then play the 49ers. Fucking bullshit. Might want to edit that part out for all the profanity. Sorry.
No, it's okay. How many times
Don't you remember me? I was pissed off about this last year. We had to fly across the country, play Cleveland in the sopping wet rain at 10 a.m. and they came off their bye. How is that shit fair? How do we got to go on the road at 10 a.m. and play a team off their bye? That doesn't make no sense. Losing to the Browns. I mean, frankly, regular season games really don't matter. They're completely overrated in terms of what the hell happens in the playoffs. But still, that shit's bullshit.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of losing to the Chiefs.
It's okay. I'm tired of losing to the Niners. So, somewhere in the same basket. All right. Well, that is our that's our top 10 games that we're looking forward to most this upcoming season. Drew, that is the end of the podcast. Anything to end it off for the people?
Yeah. I have a thought.
Okay.
Let me pull up my thought. Where is it? Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm on the I know this is going to be, if any of you guys have tuned in lately, I'm on the Dallas Mavericks to the NBA Finals bandwagon, just so everybody knows. I still don't like to watch Luka play, but Kyrie is on a different level right now.
Yeah, we can end it there. I don't want to talk about that. Fuck them. All the way.
You know what's crazy is the Cavaliers were kicking y'all's ass. And you didn't even bother to. You must have been stressed because you didn't even respond to my text message. But
and then once we got to like the fourth quarter,
I was like, "What the fuck is going on here?" And then Tatum was just like, "No, we're done." Horford was like, "Yeah, we're done."
I honestly barely tuned into the fourth quarter after we kind of pulled away a little bit, and I'm like, okay, well, game's pretty much over at this point, and that's how much the game doesn't matter to me because I know we're gonna win. Is I knew once we pulled away a little bit, I'm like, oh shit, Cardinals game's on, and I turned the channel and we fucking lost 2-7, so it didn't fucking matter anyway. So.
Oh yeah, I texted Elena on her way home yesterday. I was like, do you want to watch basketball or baseball? And she's like, who's playing? And then I was like, all right, this is the NBA game that's going on and the Giants are playing the Dodgers. She's like, oh, let's watch the Giants Dodgers. And I'm like, oh, great. And then the Giants ended up winning. So it actually worked out. But, it's funny. Actually, a buddy of mine was like, he was like, hey, do you want to go to the game? And I'm like, no, I don't want to go to the game. He's like, but why? I'm like, because who the fuck wants to drive 6 hours round trip and deal with all that bullshit to watch us get smashed by the Dodgers? I'm not interested. When I go to games, the 49ers Cowboys games are the only games I ever go to where the outcome is not predetermined before I go. If I'm going to a Kings game, which is a little different because it's 20 minutes away, but if I'm going to the games that I've gone to in the past 49ers game, we played the Commanders on Christmas Eve and we smashed them. We played the Giants last year on Thursday Night Football. We smashed them. Those are the games I like to go to. I don't want to go to no fucking Kings Celtics game and watch them lose by 30. That's just not fun. And I'm still making the payments on those damn tickets. It's like that shit. The NBA season is over. The NBA season is over, and I'm still making payments on those goddamn Celtics tickets. It's just bullshit. So, yeah, that's how I feel. I think the 49ers should have been scheduled to face all the worst teams in the league this year. That way I could go to a bunch of games. Everyone's like, hey, we should go to the Ravens game on Christmas. I ain't going to no Ravens game on Christmas last year. The Ravens are going to smash the Niners. This is what always happens. Primetime game. Primetime day, they're going to lose. And it doesn't matter at all for the playoffs. We'll just lose because that's what happens. That's probably what it feels like to be a Cowboys fan a little bit.
Yeah, well, fuck you. Well, besides that is it for our podcast this week. We will be back next week, most likely, probably full basketball episode going over the second round of the playoffs. Looking forward to the third round, the semifinals, and anything ahead of that. Besides that, see you.